evening. This is the Finance Committee meeting. I'm Lori Davis, Chair. Keith, we'll start with you if you go around the table because there's people here I don't know.
I'll start with my name.
Yes.
Keith Erf.
James Drury. Tom Clove.
Tammy Hagman.
Megan Thelen.
Chris Haig.
Matt Whitlock.
Nicole Herbst.
Oops.
Drop in.
Oh, you gotta speak? Sorry, guys.
Liar, you're not sorry.
What's that?
You're not sorry. Don't lie.
No,
Okay. Neil, why are you not up here?
I don't wish to be at the table tonight.
Committee of Finance people. We are here as a committee, and I need to have us decide. Are we all up here when we're doing a committee meeting, or do we get to decide when we're at the table and when we're not?
I mean, he's absent without excuse, is my opinion.
Yeah. Because, I mean, isn't the whole point that we're supposed to be, so the public can see us and hear us?
Sounds good to me.
Everybody else agree with that?
I'm going to have to agree.
Okay.
The only other circumstance I could think of would be a recusal for a particular reason, if that is the circumstance. I don't know.
From the whole meeting, though, or just from one vote?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what, I just don't know.
Tom, you want to make a motion to accept this, please?
Motion to accept the committee's decision
On.
needing all members at the table in order to participate.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
What's the motion? Can
Was
you
there a
just repeat
second?
Well,
All members seated at the table.
it? All committee members should be seated at the table.
In order to participate.
in order to participate.
Yeah, okay.
Is there, like, any like, selectmen, do they have to be seated at the table, like other chair groups?
They're not part of the Finance
No,
Committee.
no, but I mean, like, the precedence of how the rest of
Yeah,
the
the-
committees for the town of Ware
Yes,
run.
in
like, they
the
all
Conservation
seated at the
Committee,
table.
they're all at the table unless for some reason they're bringing, like at the Board of Selectmen,
Selectmen,
if they
planning
had to
board.
bring a personal issue forward, then they'd recuse themselves, go out, do their issue, and come back in.
So, Tom, yes, that's the case, you said?
Pardon me?
That is the case?
For the committee.
For the
yeah.
select people?
Yeah, Selectmen, planning board.
That's a good question.
Conservation Commission, ZBA.
Fair enough.
Is the fire ward recorded or no?
Fire wards aren't because they meet in the fire station. Actually, that's something we should.
They're
work
on the same night as the Board of Selectmen,
Okay, yep,
but,
okay.
so anyway, we need a second to this.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Nays, abstentions? Okay. Tonight, we're going to be listening to the Board of Selectmen presenting the budget. Naomi, it was mentioned to me earlier today that some selectman was going to be here to present the budget. Is that not correct? Okay, so unfortunately for you, because you are the next hat that's on that Board of Selectmen, you're the town administrator, as we go through the budget, because I don't have a copy of it.
Well, that's, the guys have their own, but Benjamin has his in the back upstairs to get his.
Okay,
But at the same, I think, Eileen, do you want to address something first?
Yeah, I have to read something in.
okay, our town moderator has something she wishes to present before we get to the budget.
Thank you. So for those of you I haven't met yet, my name's Eileen Meany. I was sworn in as moderator 6 weeks ago, I believe. I received a letter that came in through the Board of Selectmen and was forwarded to me as town moderator in regards to this committee. And so I want to read the letter to you. So it said, and it was addressed to the chair of the Board of Selectmen, so it was addressed to Ricky Hippler. Good evening, Mr. Hippler. I'm not sure if you are the person to contact about this, so please let me know if you aren't. At the beginning of one of the first Finance Committee meetings this year, they voted to not allow public comment. I was very surprised at this since they are supposed to be the watchdog committee for the voters, but now the voters aren't allowed to ask questions at the meetings. When I asked a member later on, I was told it was to keep the meetings from getting out of hand. I attended almost every meeting last year and never saw anyone get out of hand. I was wondering if there was a policy that allows them to do this. It seems counterproductive to small-town politics. Thank you for your time and dedication to Ware. Christine Heath. And so I just wanted to read that to you to let you know that there was a complaint that came in related to a decision about public comment. And wanted to encourage you, if it was something that you could maybe open up or reopen a discussion about it, about whether or not there could be a process just in terms of, looking for input from town members in relationship to their opinion or their input about your process.
I'm going to address this.
Okay.
The Board of Selectmen have addressed this on several times, and more than one selectman at one occasion actually said they did not want public comment, but they went down to one public comment. It is not required by law. Anybody can come to these meetings. Anybody can raise questions at the deliberative session. But we have too often seen in this town, and this is what the committee discussed, where people want to use it as a platform to air everything and anything, and we've seen it happen at the Board of Selectmen's meetings. I've had it happen at our conservation meetings, at various meetings. Somebody, it's their forum to be interested. And while we want the townspeople to be aware, we are not here to be targets for anybody. And it has happened on occasion. It's happened on the Board of Selectmen. It's happened with other committees where people take personal shots at the committee. We are all volunteers. We are here to listen and give our personal best assessment of what we feel is best for the town. We are not here to be lobbied. When residents want to question things, which is wonderful, that's where deliberative session comes in. They all have access to all the information we have. But we had a very long talk about this on the table. We do not want anybody from the audience saying, okay, you had the discussion here, I want this to be brought up. It becomes a battlefield. And we are here to listen to the facts as they're presented, do our homework, raise questions, look at what we feel is best for the town. And if the taxpayers don't agree with us, just like with the Board of Selectmen or any other committee, deliberative session is a wonderful place to have that platform. But I don't think anybody, and we talked about this, nobody here wants to get into a fight, and nobody wants to be called at home. Nobody wants to be picked on for saying something. Tom?
May I?
Yes.
Just a little different perspective, but I agree. Each of the presentations from the different department heads have already been made at the Board of Selectmen's level. Those are open meetings, and the public can comment before or at the next meeting. So there's public comment there. Also, long before the deliberative session, the budget has to have a public hearing. And at the public hearing, again, anybody can get up and speak on any of the warrant articles or any part of the budget. Traditionally, this group, and this is only my second year, so I may be a little off on this, but traditionally, this group listens to the department heads make their presentations, but doesn't get into a public discussion on it until the deliberative session. So that's been the formula in the past, and it's not meant to deny people the right to listen or to write for input, because they have that right and that opportunity at the selectmen's meetings and also at the public hearing on the budget, and again at the deliberative session. So there are three different other avenues for that public comment on the budget. And that's all that this group deals with, is public and warrant articles, no other town issue. So that's where we were coming from.
If I could make a point, it seems to me like the intent, I always want to look at intent, right? The intent of this person or anybody else would probably to be involved much earlier in the process. And my fear is if you're involved too early in the process, you could be influencing the initial opinions of the group while the committees have been giving their initial presentations, which are not final. So that's a concern that I have. But on the other hand, I do understand that people do want to be heard. And so what I would, my personal opinion is, if they do want to have that or influence or be heard, there's nothing stopping them from writing a letter or something to the committee that says, I would like you to pay particular attention. And I would call it, Neil's very good at bringing attention to things that he'd like to be called out, whether it's selectmen or whatever meeting it is. And I think it's appropriate, if you have something that you're interested, you want us to pay attention to, send something to us that said, I'd like you to pay particular attention as you're considering your recommendations. But I get the intent. The intent is that they would like to influence before the committee gets an idea of what they will support or not support. That's just my take on it.
And I think we did say that we would welcome any, letter communication, and we would read it out loud at our meetings. We would all look at it. Like, we weren't saying we didn't want, we just didn't want somebody to get up there and speak for 20 minutes. We were more looking, if you have information you want us to have, or you have questions you want us to ask, then we are more than willing for you to give us something in writing, and we will discuss it.
So I, just to have it stated, I appreciate that clarification for our community, that if there's a question that they have that they think needs to be asked, the best way for them to be able to get that across to you would be in writing.
Yes, and it would normally go, we had this discussion when John Foss was here. It was done in our first meeting. We were very clear, and the agreement was that the question would go directly to Naomi, and then she would contact me. And when we had our next meeting, we would say, the public has had this question, and we can either name the person or keep it quiet. We're not here to make anybody else embarrassed either. But as far as us saying, so-and-so wants me to go and investigate the sand department, and they have a problem with the sand department, so now I need to go after the sand department. That's not what this committee is for. We're here to look at the budgets as they're presented, raise questions. Each one of us has a different purview of what we think is concerned, and raise those questions. Certainly if somebody says, well, you didn't address that, we have 100 people on payroll, but only 3 work, we can understand that. But there again, some of that goes to the Board of Selectmen's level, because that's their job to handle things. We're only listening to their presentation, looking at the general income of the town and trying to make what's best for the average citizen. And so they're welcome to send something, Naomi, directly to you, and then forward it to me, because you have the base to have it sent to you. You have the ability to have those emails, because I don't think anybody at this committee really wants to have personal emails coming to them from people in town. That leaves us wide open.
Sure.
And, you don't want to have one of those conversations where I talked to him and he actually said this and he may or may not have said this. We don't want to go down that path either. So if the question is written in a form, sent to Naomi, she'll give it to me and I will read it at the next meeting. But as far as us going into, so-and-so says we need to really look into this because they're concerned about how the maintenance is done on the compactor, for instance. That's not our job. So residents need to understand strictly what we get presented, how we look at it, compare it to other things, but we don't get into the nuts and bolts of what each department does, how they do it, whether they've tied their shoelaces. So they have to be very careful about how they ask us things, because a lot of that would not be our purview. Sure. So please send it to Naomi.
Yeah, to dovetail on that, our role is advisory. We do not have authority. The authority rests in the general public, and the best place for them to exercise that authority is at the budget hearing and the deliberative session, because those are the 2 places where the budget is formed before it goes on the ballot. And so following these meetings is important for the public, and I love that they can follow the meetings. But we do not have decision-making authority. So public comment wouldn't necessarily be appropriate to the function of this committee because we're advisory only.
If I could make one point on that comment, is that being new to this, it's still very clear to me that this committee has a lot of influence. And so I go back to my earlier point, which is earlier in the discussion, they want to be involved in the discussion because they want to influence, and I don't think that would be pure to the process. So although we don't have decision ability, we clearly have influence. So I just thought...
we can be challenged.
I think I've heard people kind of whisper those things. Yes, that's the case. That's the job of the committee.
Yeah. And the best challenges come at the deliberative session because most people will hear the challenge.
Agree. Thank you for reading that.
Yeah, and I just, the other thing I wanted to say, I haven't had much of an opportunity to speak to you, so I want to thank you for the time that you're spending doing this. I've been sitting in the back of the room the past 2 meetings, listening to the work that you're doing. I appreciate the types of questions that you've been asking, and to your point, Lori, I would just want to make sure that the questions are in that context and that they don't deviate into areas of operations or other places that I don't know that we should be. So,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you for bringing that forward. Okay. Where'd she go?
I think they're making copies.
Okay, so while we're waiting for the copies to appear, I'm going to, are you ready with copies? You have a few more minutes.
Nope. I can be ready.
I would love a copy.
Yeah, she's ready.
Okay.
So I guess with the intent tonight, all of our departments have been to the selectmen once. We have a complete copy, but the board hasn't looked at it as a complete package. So tonight, hang on, you're not paying attention.
I'm listening.
Focus. Sorry,
Too late, you're too long.
it's like squirrel. Anyway, so my intent tonight was to give you guys copies of the, I'll call them the 3 large departments. Then you can ask questions. A lot of the Jim, Tom, Neil, Dennis, he's not here tonight, have been to the Monday night meetings and had the opportunity to ask questions. You're going to see it for the first time. I guess I'm not looking to be here till 10 or 11.
Agreed.
Because I think there's a lot of things that are very cut and dry. There's a lot of things, I don't think you got to go line by line. Because you're going to see it and you're going to see that the wages are up largely for the proposed budget, plus the raise. There's 53 weeks this year. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Then you're going to get down into other things, but I don't really want them to go, this line is there because of this, this line is because of this, because I'm going to share with you that the fire department, the proposed is the same as default. So how many questions?
Way to go, Bob.
So how many questions is that? But at the same time, there is going to be some increases in other departments, and you could ask those questions. I guess I'm asking you not to go line by line, because I just think that's,
Right, sooner or later, we may do that.
oh, yeah, and the copies are yours to keep, put on your fridge, do whatever you like. But, I'm just saying,
Goody.
you know what I mean? I'm just saying, they're yours
Right.
to keep and scrutinize. You may not catch something tonight, you may catch it another night.
Will
So-
we eventually have a person from the Board of Selectmen to?
Or me.
Or you go
Sure.
line by line one of these days? Should we feel the need to do that? Should the fit
Yeah,
take us?
But we're gonna have to have some time.
Right.
Because I know you're gonna have school coming right in behind us, so, I don't know, I mean, as I said to you on the phone,
We're going to be going to more than one meeting a
right,
month,
because we're
yes.
gonna have to address warrant articles, which tonight we're here for the budget.
Correct.
So if you go stray on a warrant article, I'm gonna stand up, raise my hand, and be obnoxious, but
Yes, that's what
Just
you're
to
supposed to
remind
do
you.
tonight.
just to remind you, we're gonna stay on the budget,
It's a pre-warning.
so, what?
That was a pre-warning, I like it.
Just telling you right now.
She and I had that conversation
He
yesterday.
can call me away if he needs to, because I know somebody can bail me out. We gotta go that route, so.
So
I don't want to feel like I'm bold. I mean, we've been here all day, but I'm just saying that a lot of these guys, 4 of them are going to have heard it already,
right.
you know. And then you're going to have your opportunity to see the entire package and have another discussion.
And after the 3 big departments talk, certainly I'm going to ask for opinions from the people who have been attending these meetings on those departments that have been to the Board of Selectmen's meetings to hear, just like we're going to ask the people who do the school meetings, flesh all that out and then ask for opinions and that kind of stuff. And it may be too early for opinions, but we'll see, because that's certainly what we do
Right.
is
I would
exchange
just ask that if
information.
you would do it while the department's here, so they don't have to sit here through the other ones if they have to go. And then the same would be courteous that after, it's a little late to ask a question because they're going to leave.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I just don't want to keep everybody. And then I'd like the podium last after you're
We
done.
can do that.
So, I don't know
So,
who you want to start with.
well, my question is, which one wants to come up first? Who's in a hurry to leave?
Benji needs to sleep.
Benji probably needs a nap.
He's the longest. I'm the longest. He's gonna be the longest talker.
Benji's probably been working since Saturday.
Benji, step right up.
Do we have to have a motion to make him come up here?
Come on, Benji, come party.
He told me today some of the guys had done 49 hours straight.
Oh, I bet.
Is that new to the one I have?
I don't know, it says 12.
Before you talk about your budget, I'm going to go on
Technically, it's
record
different.
as me.
Technically, it's different.
In my eyes.
You did a heck of a job on the roads. I've been all over the towns for the past 3 days, not just our town. I've been in
Any difference
Concord,
from before?
It says 12.
Manchester,
I can't tell
up
you.
in Keene,
I
and
don't know, Tom, I don't think so.
Ware's roads were absolutely stellar. Nice
Thank you. I'll
job.
pass it on to the
It was
guys.
interesting to come in from Goffstown, the roads were white, and as soon as I got underway, they were black. It was unbelievable.
We stayed at it, we didn't go home, so. We clocked in 49 hours.
Oh, my word.
I mean,
And they
There's a
didn't start
discount.
till 5 o'clock in the
if I knew
afternoon, so that
mine
means
would
they were
have
up
the same
8 or 10
problem,
hours
it
prior to
probably
that.
would be doozy.
Hope there's a discount on coffee for you guys.
If you
I'll
have
be
a
back
question,
up.
ask me.
Okay,
Anyone says-
thank you. I'll move this out of my way. Go ahead.
So I'm not really sure. You want me to start below the gray wage line there? Start out at, want me to just go over ones that went up and down?
Yes, please. If there's been no change, there's no reason to
Sounds
say
good.
hi to it.
Okay. Well, the very first one would be advertising. We went up $250 just for the fact that we've been posting more things paper. You have to post road postings. When you post the roads in the springtime, you have to post that in newspaper by law. If you want to send the police department after a contractor and they know the law, you can't get them in trouble if it hasn't been in the paper.
Just one newspaper, or do you have to cover it with 3?
Now, that's be at least one local papers.
Oh,
Oxygen cylinder, it's labeled oxygen cylinder, but that's all of our cutting and welding gases, many types of them.
2 lines down.
That has been up over the years. I've been going over budget, so it's been averaging about $225 a month, so I raised that line $300 to just kind of be on, try to get a number I can stay in budget with. I went up $50 on office supplies, because I'm always over on office supplies. Office equipment, we deducted a little bit, we left enough in there for a possible printer. The internet went up a little. It's labeled inspection machine equipment, because that was the first internet cord to come into the highway garage, but it's really the internet. The fuel's the selectman's deal. Go on down to fuel additive and testing. I raised that $2,000. There's many things that go into that. I've been consistently over in that line also for a few reasons. One of them, the fuel additives, when this line was first made, really was only for like your 911 additive that you put in a truck tank. Now, the newer equipment, you have what they call Blue Def. That's a additive. It goes in a separate tank, but we treat the bulk tank so that everyone that gets fuel, their fuel's already pre-treated. So anyone that gets fuel at our station, it gets treated fuel. And the testing is basically when the state comes out and does make sure we're in compliance every so often. You have to have a licensed contractor there. When the state comes out, so you have to pay that contractor. So nothing we have no say about that. So we want to stay in compliance, or we won't have a fuel station anymore. Go down to highway, signs, posts, and rails. Well, no, oil and lubricants is first, right? I raised that 4,000. We're always way over that. I think this storm I went through almost 80 gallons of hydraulic oil. It happens. Lines blow.
Blowing hoses.
Yep. So, and that's all other kinds of oils too. And lubricants is grease for the loader and backhoes and stuff. So, And it, you know, I've gone over the last few years, and I haven't proposed to raise it, but if we're not gonna have a line, might as well be a reasonable one that we can stay within budget on. It doesn't make any sense to me to have a line that doesn't mean anything, so. And then the next one, signs, posts, and rails, kind of the same thing. I don't know how rails even got on there, but the 4,200, that isn't enough money to buy 100 feet of guardrail. So that's really the signs and sign posts that we purchase, so. I put in a little extra money at least so we can pay to fix damaged guardrail. If we do a long section of guardrail for a road job, I put it under road reconstruction, but, you know, if a piece gets damaged, whatever, not that we have to pay for, it'd be nice to have, not have to pull that out of road reconstruction. And I don't know if it's more people are building garages and need to decorate their walls or what, but we replace a lot of signs a year, so.
We don't even have a college.
Rakes and shovels, I increased that $200. You can't, a shovel's like $50. I mean, it doesn't,
Yeah.
$300 didn't buy, or I guess it was 500. Yeah, 300 was the old number. That doesn't buy anything, so. Going on down to building maintenance, I raised that $1,284, and that is the price of, we jumped on the bandwagon with JP Pest Services to try to keep some of the mice out of the building, so. We're the last building in town aware not to have it, so. That's the cost for the year to have them down there. The last one on the line, would expect to have somebody ask a question about would be gravel road maintenance. We started this line last year, put $1,000 in it to have it, and that's $1,000 gravel road maintenance doesn't mean anything. So I added 11,000. What that particular number for is calcium chloride, which is used exclusively for gravel road maintenance. And we've been doing that method for years and years, probably, no, about 10 years, but 8 anyway, and it always comes out of road reconstruction.
So is it going to be taken out of road reconstruction now and not come out of the road
No, I
reconstruction
won't lower
budget?
the road reconstruction number, no.
Okay. You won't? But you are, what normally is road reconstruction is now, you've added a line item for that.
Yeah, I'm asking to be able to spend that 11,000 road reconstruction towards more road reconstruction. Because that's not road reconstruction. Vehicle equipment repair, raised $10,000. We're always over by miles on that line. I think 20 would have been a more real number, but in lieu of trying to make a budget that will pass, I picked $10,000. Go down to roadside mowing, we decreased that by $10,000 because we have a used mowing tractor. The reason I left a couple in there was in case we need to contract. So, for instance, I had a gentleman cutting the knotweed with a sickle mower. Hope not to have to do that anymore pretty soon either, but just in case I need to hire a service done, something, so. I lowered that line $10,000. And then the last one's knotweed control. The state says you have to do something with that by law. It's an invasive species, so. I did that on my own, and the week after we had our first
Roadside mowing?
application of chemical on the knotweed, I got a visit from the state asking me why this town doesn't do anything with it. And I says, matter of fact, I just did last week. And he says, oh, perfect. So,
What is it?
bamboo, it's that
Yeah.
big green stuff that grows on the side of the road.
Oh, okay.
It's an invasive species. It's illegal to spread. It's illegal not to do something with it.
It won't die either.
It's very hard to kill. So on our own, we decided to hire a contracted company to spray it. And that number is going to be 3 applications. One was this fall, one will be next spring, one will be next fall. And that number is remaining of the contract with them. So that's Highway Department. Any questions on that budget?
This is the time to ask.
I have a comment.
Sure.
On the gravel road maintenance,
Yeah.
I don't see that as any different from having a line for salt and sand. As far as it being in my opinion, it should be in the operating budget, because if you have salt and sand in the operating budget and calcium chloride is something you spread on a road, what's the difference? It shouldn't,
When I
it's
worked
not road
in-
reconstruction.
When I worked
it's,
in Deering, we had a line that was just dust control, it was calcium chloride.
Mhm.
And we had a line that was just for gravel crushing, for gravel roads, which currently gravel crushing still comes out of there. I mean, any other town kind of already does do that, so. But over the years, we need to get our road reconstruction up, and I'm adding a little to it every year, but it'd also be nice to pull some of the stuff out of there that's being spent on things that's not road reconstruction, so. It wouldn't raise the number, but we'd be able to spend it in a, towards what it's meant for.
My point was simply that it's the same thing. In winter, you put down salt and sand on your paved roads or on the gravel roads, and here you're doing dust control. You're putting it down in the summer on your gravel roads, so it's the same line of thinking. It's a maintenance issue. And so, I'm not speaking against it. I'm
Yep.
just saying I understand why it's in this budget.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, on the highway director's salary raised per town vote, last year, we raised some of the other department heads more than, and we didn't do this one, and we had said at the time we were going to revisit this year, but this doesn't really, is this just the raise because there's 53 weeks, or how was the 64 derived?
Is that percentage when we vote in for all the employees, correct?
So it doesn't address what we had sort of deferred last year then, I'm taking.
Right, but that's
Okay.
between the Board of Selectmen and Benji,
That,
but
well, that
yes,
was,
you're
yeah,
absolutely
and that
correct.
was my question, thank
Right.
you.
That's a whole different other board. But yes, it is due to the fact that every year, so far, the town has seen fit to award the employees that are not under unions, correct? Or is it?
Yeah.
And they get last year they got what, a 3% raise?
Yep.
And that's what that is, correct, Benji?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Back to the calcium chloride, just for clarification, is that used year-round
No,
or
it's
just in the
just
summer?
summer.
So you're using normal salt and sand or not at all?
We put straight sand on dirt roads in the winter for traction control, and we put calcium chloride on the summer. For dust control, really for erosion control. You guys like it because it doesn't, your houses don't get dusty. I like it because I don't have to add gravel as often. Rain doesn't wash it away.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just a quick question. It looks like some of the line items, like, I don't know if the lubricants and lines that are busting like that, or the welding, or some of the other, seem to be maintenance related.
They are.
And those costs are going to be dependent on the age of our fleet, a little bit?
A little bit, yep. I mean, hydraulic lines, yes, obviously, hopefully it don't happen on new ones, but you're gonna have hydraulic lines, but yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing with my budget, my vehicle repair, when you look at them numbers, that is only breakdowns and parts to fix broken trucks and some contracted labor if we don't have the technology, but I have a line, as you will see, for tires, I have a line for oil, that's also vehicle maintenance, just another
Off
$30,000.
on the maintenance, how'd you come through the storm? Vehicles are good?
Yeah, all right. We didn't have any more, and 2 at a time broke down, so it's better than 4. I got a new young mechanic, and he was Johnny on the spot. Couldn't have been happier with him. He got stuff right in and out, and nothing serious. Blown hydraulic lines one right after another, and a couple other little things.
Okay, any other questions? Speak now. Go ahead, Matt.
What was the approved raise that the town voted in?
3%.
So on the second line, row number 2 in this from the approved budget to both the proposed and default, it seems to have gone up a lot more than 3%.
Is that due to the dollar an hour more for the employees or not, Naomi?
Well, there's a 3% raise, but there's also 53 weeks this year, so you have an extra week.
Okay.
I think that probably addresses it. Well, maybe.
I think it does.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Bench. You go home and get some sleep.
I got 3 more departments if you want.
Oh, all right, if you want to continue.
I'm happy going home, but I'm sure,
Which one do you want to do next?
well, transfer station's next on my list.
Okay.
The very first one's the part-time wages. Over the years, starting with Tim, we have got part-time help go up there mainly to work Saturdays, so the highway guys don't have to go up and work Saturdays. And this 100 hour, I'm asking to raise it enough to have them for another 100 additional hours per year, which would cover some of their time off, the transfer station guys' time off. Right now, there's enough time for only Saturdays, that's it. So, if Bill and Matt go on vacation or whatever, get sick, then I still gotta send a highway guy up there,
Oh,
so that is what that number represents, is to add another 100 additional hours. I have 3 part-timers, it's not for one person, they rotate, but 100 hours split up between the 3 of them, so. Go on down to building maintenance. I added $2,000. That building's getting antique up there. We're gonna have to start fixing it. Here soon, we need to come up with a plan to look at updating the facility, but for this year, that's why that number went up. The next few in line are increases per contracts, hauling contracts with the trucking contractor. You go down to the transfer station wheelabrator line. They told me they won't have the number till December 31st, and they told me to estimate between 1.5% and 3% increase, so I picked 2 for trash, so it's kind of a crapshoot, but feel fairly comfortable with that. And what that is the price per ton we pay to dispose of the trash at the wheelabrator, so.
do you feel we're getting our best buy by still being involved with co-op?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because everything revolves around trucking, so, I mean, to landfill it up in Maine, your trucking cost is gonna more than offset if you save anything on trash, so. Someday, if this state doesn't stop letting Massachusetts haul their trash up here, someday very soon, we're gonna have to start sending it on rail to other states, and it's gonna be huge money, so. Anybody thinking influence, New Hampshire should just take New Hampshire trash, because the Berlin landfill, stuff like that, other states are hauling their trash up here because it's cheaper than deal with it in their own state, so. Our landfills are filling up very quickly. So, and the regulations they put on that burner is taxing. Someday they're gonna get sick of it. It won't be around forever. We go on down shop supplies. I raised that a little bit. We're always over budget. Raised it $150. Diesel fuel, gasoline at Selectmen.
Legislation.
Yeah, this was my favorite.
Uniforms went up just a little bit. That's just so I give everybody t-shirts in the summertime, a jacket in the winter. And hazardous waste day went up. I budgeted for $7,000. We went way over that, but we didn't have one last year. We had 2 this year, and it worked very, very well. So I thought that I was gonna have 2 this year, and then I got to looking at it, and most of your expense for hazardous waste day is setup fee. So I backed that back down to 1 day a year. We spent, $13,000 in hazardous waste day this year, so.
Wow.
It was very well accepted, I guess, by the public, but it was $4,300 per time for setup fee, so it was, almost $9,000 for them to set up. only $4,000 dispose of the waste, so.
Right.
So, we'll do one day. I raised it though, so that, maybe we can stay a little longer in the day. That's it for transfer station.
Any questions on transfer station by anybody? Next.
Next is sewer, which really has nothing to do with, the tax base. The users pay the whole bill. Nobody else does. Really, the only thing worth discussing, I guess, is down the very bottom is the one-time purchase. This year I chose to have, it was requested by the Board of Selectmen. I thought it was a good idea, so I chose to have a PM, preventive maintenance, done on it. We had a very expensive pump fail last year, and it could have been bad news if I didn't catch it when I did, and it may have been caught with a preventive maintenance plan, may not have been, so I had that done anyway. And in the report, they said I should replace the rails. The rails are just what they say, 2 little round rails, well 4 of them because there's 2 pumps. That's what the pump slides down into the sludge hole on. And they're rotting and not going to hold the pumps much longer, so they suggest I replace them with stainless steel rails.
And those costs are passed on to the users, correct?
That's right, everything's passed on to the users. And then the last one's water department, and I just raised the water testing $200. We're always over budget. There's never really any way to decide or to, to forecast what it's gonna cost. The state picks what sample you're gonna do every month. Last year, twice I got an enormous cooler full of little itty bitty bottles, like 70 of them. Very time consuming on my part, very expensive to have tested, so. And this year I might hopefully not get any of those, but you don't know, so we had budget enough to do it. So, DES says that you have to do it if you have public drinking your water, so.
Any questions? Would you like to go home?
Yeah, I'd love to.
We don't want to talk about sewer anymore, so.
Thank you very
We don't want
much.
to talk about sewer anymore.
Okay, fire and PD, which one of you would like to come up? Bob? Chair recognizes Bob Vecina of Fire. Oh, thank you.
We're a low budget department, so I'll just do it myself.
Wow.
Thank you.
Kind of department head.
He's got somebody gonna tone him out, right?
Thank you. Thank you.
I figure if this is the same as the one I had before or not. Oh, no. A little different. All right, guess I'm throwing that one in the trash. Well, this was a couple weeks ago. So, I guess.
No color, black and white. Oh,
Whoops. Please.
What's in the box?
my notes in that pile of stuff you got?
Did you just hand them to someone?
What'd you lose?
His notes.
I got them right here. How in-depth would you like?
Start light, and if we have questions in the weeds, we'll speak right up.
Okay. You just want to go through the lines? I have highlights of what we actually did with our money this year. If you'd like to, we can buzz through those.
That would be great.
Okay. 2019 for, I would assume all departments, because it's been a very busy year out there. We had a very busy year. We're not quite done yet. And I'll just read down through some of the highlights of what we did. So on the personnel perspective, the major goal of this year was to retain and recruit people for the call force, but also to hire our first 2 full-time employees, which the voters were gracious to approve that. We looked at many different candidates. I think we did background checks on 6. We ended up hiring 2. They were internal to our department. They weren't necessarily on our radar initially. They were and they weren't, and it all kind of worked out. We ended up with 2 very, very highly qualified people. We took a lot of time with this. We're actually started a little later than we wanted to as far as their start date, because we put a lot of effort into finding people who were a really good fit for what we're trying to accomplish here. And because they're the first 2, that they would be the foundation of what we hope is the future. In the part-time part of the personnel piece, we promoted 1 person to lieutenant. We ended up resigned, firing 6 employees. We filled that with 6 additional employees, but going to Tom's question that he had during the selectmen's budget, I did put together what our process is to intake someone and kind of the costs associated with that. And when I get through this, I can share that with you.
Sure,
if you'd like.
thanks.
From a training perspective, on the EMS side, we had 2 people that we were able to enhance their skills to the advanced EMT level. Those people were in-house to us. We did continuing education for all of our EMS people. There's 36 hours per person that needed to get done with that. We renewed our certification for our surgical cricothyrotomy, which is when you can't breathe and they need to cut a hole. Hope to never use that, but they're certified in doing that. On the fire side, we did have 1 person who advanced their skills in the firefighting realm to firefighter 2. That's several hundred hours of training. We conducted a live burn over on Centerbrook Road. For a gentleman who built a house, we were able to use his old house for training and then removed it by completely burning it down and saving him quite a bit of money in the demolition part of that. We did share some training experiences with Francistown. That was in the Messenger, where we did some SCBA training. They had a maze. We also went to their department. We did some auto extrication training as well. And so that worked out excellent. On the equipment side, a very busy year. We updated our phone system, which you'll see that in the budget. All of our data infrastructure was updated, and we added some tablets for our medical record keeping. Those are actually in the field, and it worked out quite well at a much less cost than trying to maintain like a hardened tablet. We did RFP and we purchased the rigid inflatable boat, the command car, which should be delivered this week, complete. The thermal imaging cameras we replaced, turnout gear. We upgraded our uniforms. So it's been a busy purchasing year as well. Under the heading of outreach, we had applied for through Dartmouth Hitchcock for the sports helmet grant, and I think we got 50 helmets. We did a bike rodeo that coincided with the patriotic celebration. That was pretty well attended, and we were able to give out all of those helmets during that part. We did the Stop the Bleed, which is a kind of a nationwide effort to, there was a recognition that when they had some of these terrible events that happen, whether it's a shooting or, some that kind of came out of the Boston Marathon bombing, was that people were bleeding to death before they could have surgical intervention. And so there's a national outreach program to get people to recognize what a bystander's role could be in an event like that. And so we have people in our department that are trained to do those presentations and to provide that training. We did that with John Stark High School, and we also did it at Old Home Day. I think that's in August, I'm not sure. Unfortunately, that's just the world we live in today. It's like citizen CPR. It's one of those first responder things that could truly save someone's life. We participated in Center Woods Elementary School, the field day that they had, which was in the spring. Fire Prevention Week, which is in October. I should know that. We hit all the public school second graders all come to the fire station. There's an hour-long presentation where they see, I think there's 2 or 3 different phases of what we do for work. We participate in driver's ed at the high school. On the more, that's stuff that a lot of people don't understand, that we're out there doing when we're not responding to calls. Under the permits and prevention piece, which a lot of that work falls on me, as of mid-November, we had the town had issued 261 permits that required some sort of an inspection from our department. That represents 1/3 of all permits issued by the town. And again, these are dated back to mid-November. It's about 469 inspectional trips for somebody, and again, that's mostly me. We took in, what would you say, Beth? Maybe another 20, 25 permits since then. It's just been a crazy busy year. There's been more commercial work. And that commercial work generally is more technical, requires more review, more time on site, and just requires more of an effort of myself or the department to stay ahead of that. We've probably seen 5 or 6 relatively larger scale projects. We collect fees for those permits, and we met as of November 14th, we had already met our revenue projection for the year, so we're kind of on the plus side of that. On the EMS side, again, with that timestamp of November 14th, we're seeing about 11% of our patients that we saw were BLS, 48% were advanced life support needs, and about 41% of those we did not even transport to the hospital. So we see a lot of patients. Not everyone goes to the hospital. Sometimes they just need the reassurance that, they're okay, and if they want to go to the hospital by themselves, they can. Sometimes it's a third-party call. Someone sees an accident, you get there, no one's hurt, those kind of things. One thing for people that have been around for a little while, we're starting to go mutual aid. So back in before I got here, there was a concern from the neighboring departments that they were responding into Ware quite a bit, and so I think we've kind of finally turned the corner on that, and we're actually providing service outside the town boundaries.
Where do we do that to?
Henniker, we were in Henniker today. Henniker, Deering, we've been to Dunbarton, Goffstown, which is unusual, New Boston. And one of the things that we're seeing is where we have that paramedic level staffing that, we've been called for just that part of it, that they need a paramedic.
Do we have a paramedic on all day, every day?
No. The short answer is no. We have paramedics on, I would say, Monday to Friday. There's a very good chance that day shift has a medic, or is at the medic level. It's kind of probably 60-40 on the weekend days, and then the nighttime is probably when you're not at the paramedic level. But we're at the advanced EMT level.
Okay.
And the advanced EMT is really targeted at that sudden cardiac event where you have someone's having a STEMI or a heart attack. That EMS training for that particular certification is really geared to for that.
Okay.
And that works out really well for us. And we have a number of those people at that level. Just, I made a couple notes, some notable responses, is our EMS people are involved in a lot of life-threatening situations where patients are truly sick. One thing I'll say about this community, we don't do a ton of calls, but generally speaking, people are very sick that need to go to the hospital. And whether that's from, a cardiac, stroke, we see sepsis. We see a lot of sepsis stuff where people are just they have some sort of an infection and it's kind of lingered on for a while. We've gone to a lot of cardiac arrests this year. We were successful on one particular call where that lady was able to leave the hospital, who was in cardiac arrest when we got there, and so that was a cooperative effort with citizen bystander, CPR, the police department. We arrived, having a paramedic level service at the time. All those things came together and resulted in, a great, great conclusion. So, everyone has seen the dog in the well issue, and probably the one of the biggest things that, from a headline perspective, was the police officer who was shot earlier this summer. It's August?
July.
Yeah. And because it is all about money, EMS, we project revenue based on ambulance billing, and we met that projection back in November. So we're doing better than expected.
I'm sorry, you were right.
I'm not right very often. So 2019 operating budget, we've met or exceeded our goals and objectives, which is great. We worked really, really hard this year. Again, we recruited and hired 2 full-time employees that I don't know if we could have done it better. We could have got 2 better candidates than the ones that we got for what we'd like to get done with them. We acquired all of our capital budget items at or below what we expected we were going to get them at, and we've exceeded all our revenue projections already. So 2020, the budget that we're going to talk about, we seek to maintain that momentum that we have in 19 going forward, building on the foundation that we started to for other people that may come to the department. Our proposed budget is at the default number, and in almost every line that we have that's an increase is all stuff that was approved by the voters through this process last year.
Does anybody have any questions? Keith?
Back to the EMS, what was the total call for your percentage, you were calculating percentages off of?
I think that's, if memory serves me right, it's about 470
474.
something patients.
You gave me the math last night.
And what do you get for each one you actually transfer?
That varies widely.
What's the average?
I don't know if the only thing I could do is take what we actually collected.
What's the total?
I don't know.
Yeah,
off the
because
top of
you
my
don't
head.
collect, it depends on whether they
Yeah.
can pay or not.
It-
It's very,
It's not
flexy.
linear, but I would say we probably, want to guess?
Went from $112 to.
Yeah, it really depends on who's paying.
Okay, $112 to what?
Five.
How much?
500.
500?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was billed at more than that.
Yeah, an ALS call is probably getting billed out at like $1,400
yep.
now. That's a number, and depending on who's paying the bill, that might not be anything close to what you're getting.
And it also depends on which hospital you're taking them to, too.
It depends more on insurance carrier, whether someone actually even pays the bill. I mean, we send a lot of stuff to collections.
I just understand this, you bill 1,400, but the most you expect to collect is 500?
No, we expect to collect 1,400. The reality is we don't necessarily collect 1,400.
Let me put that differently. You bill out $1,400, the most you've ever collected is $500 in the past year. They were sent through November 14.
No.
No, the most we haven't, no.
Well, you said the range was 112 to 500.
That's what we've been collecting, but I don't know what the highest.
Yeah, there are some people that have paid their bill in full. We could bill out a call at $1,400 because that's what our matrix is, and Medicare will say, okay, well, that's great, but our allowable is only this much.
I understand Medicare, I understand insurance, I get all that. So the range is actually 112 to 1,400, and
Right.
sometimes you collect 1,400.
The range is 0 to
Zero up to
1,400. Yep.
But you can't give me the total for the up to November 14.
I don't know off the top of my head, but Beth may have that revenue number.
I didn't hear the question.
What's our revenue number for the
The EMS revenue number?
127?
Yeah.
I think it's higher than that. No?
Oh, I haven't done the numbers.
Yeah, so,
So 127 through October.
Yeah, last time I worked was
yeah.
October.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
So,
Go ahead.
going down through the budgets, I'll follow Benji's format briefly. So, not to get too far into the weeds. So we share a facility with the police department. And back in 2003, when they built the place, there's a lot of stuff combined. There was a lot of stuff not necessarily completed because the police department existed, but the fire department didn't really exist. And so there's been a lot of things that have happened as as the fire department has come to use the facility more, that we've kind of added on somewhat piecemeal in some ways. And we shared a lot of things with the police that were later found out that we shouldn't be sharing with the police. And so this year, we basically completely separated the two departments from a communication and a data standpoint. And so the result of that is needing more money in the telephone line. And so that's what that increase is for. We had a line cisterns and water hole maintenance. There was $500 in there. I think we used it 1 year, and that goes back when we went to Abijah Bridge and put a new dry hydrant in there. That was the only time I think we've ever spent money out of there since I've been here. And so I propose that we leave $2 in that line and then take that $498 that we have and use it to offset the couple of increases that we have. The next increase was for supplies. We typically spend more than we're budgeted for supplies. That's just the way that it is. There's a lot of lines in this budget that probably haven't increased in my time here. That one, I think we have increased once, and we need to put that up again. Fuel, which is really a mathematical expression of this many gallons and a number that the selectmen picked for the actual commodity. That caused that line to go down by $972. And then we have an educational service contract with an outside vendor that provides our EMS training. That's a 3% escalation each year. And so that's what that 120 represents. Mix it all up, it comes out to the same number as default.
Any questions?
I just have one question.
Go ahead.
What are fire supplies? Like an example?
Every one of our lines say fire on them, so it's really just supplies. So that's everything from the soap for the dishwasher to paper towels to all that stuff. Yep,
Got it.
yeah.
Thank
If you look at every line, everyone says fire, so it makes it sound
At least we know what
more
department.
To make sure.
Right.
I thought that's what it was.
On the telephone line.
Yep.
Does that increase, is that just to cover the monthly continuing cost of additional lines, or is there some one-time purchases? that
Yeah,
came out
so
of that?
good question. The phone system that we had when we moved in was probably the same as you had in your house. We didn't even have an answering machine. No one answered the phone. I think we only had 2 phones. And so probably in 2012, the police department had I'll say a PBX system. And so we were able to install a card into the PBX system and create a phone system on our side of the building. It worked okay. It had some limitations. Phone quality itself was not overly great. So when we made the separation, we switched to Granite State Communication to host for us. And so we have a digital system. Because we have a digital system, each phone has it's a VoIP kind of system.
Okay.
And so there's each handset has a recurring cost to it.
Got it. All right.
There were some one-time costs that we're going to expense out of this year's budget to cover those. And so going forward will just be costs associated with service.
Right, you've gone to phone system as a service, basically, so
We
there's
went
there's
to a
not so
phone
much hardware
system.
on site.
It's a modern phone system that enhances our operation, for sure.
You said that you split, basically took control all of your side, police is all on their side. So does that mean heat, electricity, all that, you have budgeted on your side, they have budgeted on theirs?
That's
Or is that
included,
over
yeah,
in
that's in
the
Naomi's
town's budget?
category, yeah.
Okay,
So the heat and electricity is still shared between the 2 departments. We used to pay for the heat, the police paid for the electricity, and then 2 years ago, that all went over to,
now Naomi pays for it.
Well, it's a government building.
Right.
It's crazy to say you pay electricity out by the oil. It's a building.
More important is who controls the thermostat.
You put a lock on that. You put a lock on a thermostat.
That's funny. Anything else you want to, go ahead, Matt.
How many new full-timers were there?
2,
Those were the ones that were the warrant article, correct?
correct. Yep. And when and there's going to be a separate night for warrant articles, and we'll be back.
Yes, yes, we're not touching warrant articles. I just wanted to clarify that those 2 that Matt asked about, that they were the warrant article people.
Yep. I have 2 more budgets to talk about.
Sure.
Forest fires, which is primarily done by Ray Eaton. I'm sure most people know Ray Eaton. He has,
Oh, no.
I think for the entire time I've been here, has held the line on his budget. I don't think we've increased anything in that time
Okay.
period. And the last one, which is on the last page, is emergency management. I am the emergency manager for the town, and that budget is at default as well. It's a slight increase because of the wages.
Any questions? Go ahead.
For dispatch 911, how is that? Is that operating? Is that split?
Yeah, so dispatch, we each have we're each in Goffstown Dispatch. Police Department dispatches for both of us. We each have a dispatch contract with them. I think I'm at year 2 of 3. And I don't know what the police are at. I'm gonna guess they're kind of similar.
Yeah, that line says 2021.
That's when it expires.
Yeah.
That's when it expires.
There it is, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Have a nice evening. Okay, our new police chief.
Points off, points off.
His case is pretty intense. You're gonna have to get one of those. Like, you don't know what's in that thing.
Just add more stuff to your
Am I
list.
taking over? Like, what's going on?
We good to go? No, we're good to go.
Come back again.
Full color.
Full color. Got a lot going on. If I just did shading, you'd lose it.
That's mine.
Okay, our new police chief.
All right,
Would you like
so-
to introduce yourself, because
I
you're
would.
new to me?
So, yeah, I think you're the only one I haven't met. So, Chris Moore, we talked. But, yeah, we're going to go through this. So, I'm going to try to keep it simple. I'm going to go over some philosophy changes first. I wasn't going to do the board, but I think I need to do the board just to explain how it differs and how that ties into the budget. So, if you need me to expand on concepts or anything, just let me know. So, how the police department was set up is strictly one officer cars. If we respond to emergency situations, they have enough equipment for one officer to do that. When you look at the shooting, these two officers responded to the scene. Those cars are no longer available along with equipment. This car went to the hospital, that equipment's no longer. So we still have 7 officers with 2 cars with 2 people's equipment. So when I'm asking for some equipment, it's so they can be issued individual equipment and still keep with them. So if we have a school shooter, they don't have to come to the station, they can go straight there, because they'll have everything they need with them. Make sense? Kind of a different philosophy. This just had to do with emergency operations. If we ever went into 24-hour coverage, we have 12 bodies. This would be me on day shift with 5 officers, 5 cars. This is why we have 5 patrol vehicles. Night shift, 5 officers on night shift or evening shift with the LT operating the evening shift. Make sense? That's how it's kind of set
So
up.
you'd actually participate?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm a patrol chief. I'm certified. So
Okay.
I do have to ride with Mike Muse still, but I can ride with him, but I can't ride on my own yet. Once I ride with him and get certified through the field training process, then I can ride on my own. Little system. It's all
Isn't
good.
that nice?
Yeah, it is. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of headbutting. All right. So this is color coded, and if you flip to page 3, it kind of gives you an overview of how I group stuff. So what I'm gonna hit first is just salary, benefits, and overtime. I have percentages comparing the 2019 budget to 2020 budget. When we're talking 2020 budget, or the 2020 budget, I do want to note one thing in case your numbers don't add up. I did not include one-time purchases on that when comparing it, the total. So Beth has a total of $1,636,606. I took the $22,500 off of that because that's not going to be part of the standard budget. Make sense? So when I'm figuring percentages, it's based on $1,614,106. Rather than the full amount with the one-time purchases, just when I'm talking percentages. So when we talk salary, benefits, overtime, in 2019, it was 86.41% of my budget, so it's an absolute majority of my budget. We actually went down a little bit at 85.31, and that's just because of how the proportions worked out, not that we're not going to pay anybody less. I don't really have to go over that because that's not in my realm. I will go over one thing on line 4, which is part-time secretary wages. That position, if we fill it, is directly related to record retention, which many of you have heard me talk about before. We're required to maintain records per RSA, particularly arrest records. We have to keep them for their lifetime. They can't be made electronic. It has to be the hard copy. We're down to our last shelf, so they have to go somewhere. So we're going to have the records separated and put them in a place I used in my old department called Iron Mountain, which is out by Durham. until we get a facility built, which will have a enhanced storage facility where we can house those. But that position is purely for us to separate the records, prepare them to put them into Iron Mountain as a part-time position, so we can start working on that. What I do have now is Officer Lewis return to temporary, what's it called? TAD?
Temporary alternative duty.
Temporary alternative duty yesterday. He can grasp, can't really pick up, so I'm not sure how much he can work with that, but that's his duty. If he can do it, great. I don't have to fill that position. If he can't, then I'm gonna have to get our ACO is actually gonna do it as a part-time position at 5 hours a week to start working on it, because she's already been through a background check, so we can use her without having to outsource that and pay for somebody else to go through a background check. That was my only salary adjustment. If we go to building services, so that's going to be your green area. That's pretty much our telephone, anything that helps just operate the building, trash disposal, cleaning. Let's see, I'll go through the lines. So the lines related to that are 17. We'll go through them one by one just in case there are any subtractions or additions. So I subtracted that $2,000. When I was looking at the phone bill, what I saw is we do a lot of calls from the station, and they're all long distance, which is kind of crazy. We're all issued cell phones, so I just asked the guys, use your cell phones so we're not paying the long distance. So I'm expecting a savings on that. I just guessed $2,000. So that's where that's coming from. Line 22 is the next one, no change. 29, no change. 30, no change. 31, no change. 35, a lot of these are going to be default.
Well, 31 is a new line, correct?
Moved from.
Correct. So all I did on that one, thanks for catching that. So all I did on that one is I split my police supply line between actual police supplies and building supplies. So if we're buying paper towels, it's something we had to buy for the building rather than like I'm buying bullets for my gun. But it's the same amount of money. All I did was transfer it into a new account. And just to make note too, on these color codes, I talked with Beth today. I'm gonna try to organize these as I'm reading them off. So next year it'll appear like I'm talking about it. Everything will be grouped in a building. Everything will be grouped with personnel, stuff like that. So that's where I'm going with that. Line 35 was a request for one computer. I don't think it's going to be that much. I just put $1,300. It's a laptop. What we have is we have a scanner where we can scan evidence into our evidence room, but we have no computer to hook the scanner up to. So they're having to scan stuff in, go back out to another computer. It's very inefficient, and of course we're usually running around doing stuff. So the more efficient we can be, the better. So it's just for a laptop computer. I don't have a quote from it yet with Doug to put that in the actual evidence room so they can stand there, get their work done, and go back out and hit the street. Line 36, no change. And line 39 is the new line. Software support. So what I did, there's certain software obviously we have to get. One is Fox Pro, so I can edit PDFs, policy procedure. Another one is Leads Online. That has to do with, say you get burglarized, somebody pawns what they took from your property in a pawn shop in Gulfstown. We can see that. That allows us access to that system. But it's stuff like that. A $300 scheduling app. If somebody taps out sick, the sergeant can now put that shift available to everybody's cell phone. Another town was using it. It's very effective, and it's reasonable. That's an annual fee. So I started that line just to account for what we're actually doing software-wise. Anybody got any questions about building services? All right, department. I have supplies and contract. We'll start with supplies. So supplies are line 15. So I just took a 3-year average of that. That's evidence collection. You know, if we get drugs, we have to test them, store them, send them to the lab for additional testing, anything related to the collection, preservation, and prosecution of cases, pretty much. It was lower this last year because we had less people working. we weren't fully staffed. We were down at 5 at one point out of 12 working. So less people working means less cases getting prosecuted. Proactive cases, like our DUI arrest, we're probably cut in half, stuff like that. Line 25, no change. Line 37, and that's where I split the office supply. It used to be a $4,000 line. I split $2,000 into office supplies and moved the other $2,000 into building supplies. Line 41, postage, no change. Line 45, which is on the next page, no change. Department contracts, these are all things we're obligated to contractually, such as, like they were talking about, the Gulfstown dispatch. So I can't really control those. I can go over them if you want. If everybody wants me to, I'll go over them one by one, but those are out of my control because they're all contractual. So we'll go to personnel expenses. Training, I've got 3 lines under training. I would like to note, so training 12 personnel is 0.32% of my, I'm sorry, 1.47% of my entire budget. So there's a lot of liability with the department. It's very important we train people to mitigate liability. Like I like to tell Naomi, there's been no lawsuits since I've been here. I know. We're very happy with that stat. Just 6 months, but we're positive, Neil. We're positive. We're working on it, buddy. We're on the right track.
Legal line.
That's right. So, and I didn't ask for anything extra, so no change to line 24, which is our main training budget. No change, I'm sorry, line 26, there's an adjustment of $50 just because that's what it added up to once we started looking at the individual associations. No, line 48, no change, that's just police books updates, and I didn't even use that. I kept it there just because it's $500.
48 is different.
Is it? Did I look at the wrong one?
48's up.
Oh, yeah, I did look at the wrong one. I'm sorry. I looked at 45. Thank you. All right, so this is where I'm talking about related to that. So defensive equipment training. The helmets that we need to get are $300 each. The vests, which are level 4 vests, they'll stop. They're the trauma plates, the ones that will stop reticle rounds. They are $950 each. Tasers, batteries for radios, and less than lethal shotguns. All of that's included. But there was an increase just to start getting us on track of what we need to get everybody an individual set of gear. Part of the helmets is down in the one-time purchase, 5 of them, just because the 5 that we have in the cars expired in 2018. They didn't know that helmets expired. They're good for 5 years. Everything I'm doing, I'm trying to get on life cycle management. You guys have heard me talk about that before. So once I get this organized, which will be by next year, it'll be a flat line. We'll know what everything costs, how long everything lasts, unless something comes out, somebody wrecks a car or something.
We don't want to
I
hear
know.
that.
No lawsuits, no wrecked cars. So, but that's what that increase was for, just to get the defensive gear up, so we're ready to go to a scene. Next is uniforms equipment. That's going to be starting on line 47. So that's just the cost of a radio. Trying to think of why it went down. I missed that one.
For the communications equipment?
Yeah.
Because it's just the cost of one radio, because now you're upfitting.
Okay. Yeah, and all of ours are fine. Personal radios, we don't need any till something breaks. Batteries are what needs to be replaced annually. They're issued one battery and it's good for a year. Line 50, uniform equipment. No change. I just put the side note in the gear. You notice the new gear on guys. They're going to external vests just to get the weight off the hips, if you've heard me say many times. Want to make sure we take care of the health, safety, and welfare of our people. And there's a lot of scientific studies out there saying get the weight off the hips. Line 51. Those are the ballistic vests. So those are the actual vests that we carry, the external carriers that I was just talking about. So 3 of those. And the idea is to retain our people so we're not buying so many. It hadn't worked out so much in the past, but we're down to 1 vacancy, and we had 1 guy in the pipeline right now. So hopefully we won't be buying vests for a while. Line 55, that's default, standard is medical equipment. We carry AED, the chief was mentioning the CPR event. That was also an AED event where an AED was deployed. We have 3 of them. It was successful in that case. I think we've had 2 life-saving incidents this year, so it's pretty good. All right. Anybody have any questions about that line? Yes, sir.
Actually, I missed the opportunity on 48, just not to go backwards, but when you were talking about, it was the helmets and whatnot.
Yes, sir.
Did you say that that's the one time to get caught up, or you don't quite have a grasp, and we might have the same line item next year to get caught up on some stuff?
No, so that'll catch me up, and then I'm gonna do life cycle management where I'm buying, so we have 12 people, essentially, with 5-year cycle.
So you believe this covers the amount to catch you up? Sorry.
Yeah, that'll catch me up, and then it'll default, what I have in the budget, I'll be good.
Fair enough, thank you.
To maintain what I have, life cycle management.
Are the helmets one size fits all?
No, they're small, medium, large.
So I hear people that all fit the same size.
No, not on these. The vests are that they use, they're just quick straps, so they can throw them on, pull them tight, go right over top of their gear that they're currently working with. But the helmets are small, medium, and large, so they get fitted before we actually order them. Yeah, that was another problem, because I don't know what size they were actually putting in the cars. Mike Muse has a big head, so I'm just saying.
Can I go back and actually ask a question?
Absolutely.
Line 20, police accreditation, you're taking out the 8,500. Is that was that a one-time expense?
We are no longer accredited.
Thank you.
We were down to five people. We don't have the people to maintain accreditation. We kept the line. We'd like to get it back eventually, but with 5 people, we had so my first 3 months were dedicated to that. I did an assessment of what we had. We were getting ready to get our quarterly assessment, and I forget how many standards they were looking at. I think we were compliant with like 29, but we were out of compliance with 19 and iffy on a couple more. And like I said, we just didn't have anybody who could stop, dedicated just to finding proofs to get us in compliance with them. So I approached the board. The board agreed we need to table that until we have the personnel back to get it. And just to let you know, so they had 1 person running it here. My department, where I came from, was the same level of accreditation. We had 3 people dedicated just for CALEA. So that's the kind of commitment you need to have if you want CALEA. We were the smallest organization in New Hampshire. I think it was in New England, if I'm not mistaken. I heard that, but definitely in New Hampshire, who was accredited. So that had a lot to do with Chief Kelly's his experience, because he was a CALEA manager for his old department. He was used to it, but it wasn't part of the culture here. It was just something he did and the lieutenant was able to do.
And does the I'm sorry, I don't know, but does accreditation get us anything as a department, or it's more of like we're accredited and?
So it's kind of like the way I look at it is kind of like auto insurance for your car. You don't want to use it, but it's nice to have. So say we get in a pursuit and worst case scenario happens, we're going through an intersection, hit and kill a couple people in the car. Of course, they're going to sue us. What they're going to look at is what our standards were, what our training was, and what our response was. And they're going to look to see if that was consistent with our policies and procedures and consistent with law enforcement philosophy nationwide. It will reduce our liability if we were in compliance with all those. But, I can't tell you what that would be. It would definitely help us. But regardless, they're still going to do that. Our policies are still in place of what they were when we were CALEA. I'll be rewriting most of them over the next couple of years, just because I also came from a CALEA agency, and they were formatted different where they were easier to read, which the guys agree with. They're not very easy to read currently. It's difficult to find things.
So what's your staff level now?
Well, let's see. I've got
Go slow.
3 on administrative because Lieutenant Hebert just came back yesterday.
Okay.
Officer Lewis just came back yesterday, and Sergeant McGuire is still on admin from the shooting.
Okay.
He should be coming off very soon. I can't tell you when, because it's still under technical investigation with the AG's office, but they've already contacted us to let us know they're trying to schedule the media conference. So that's coming to a conclusion. Sergeant Montplaisir is on military duty. So we're not he's going to Qatar next year. We're not expecting him back. And I have one vacancy. Other than that, I'm fully staffed.
On the one vacancy, you said you've got one in the pipeline.
Correct. So,
Anticipation,
yes, so
landing?
that's why this is a very important process. You guys make our officers feel valued. You know, you give them what they need to do the job and do it successfully. When they feel valued, of course, they want to stay here. That helps us recruit. Our last recruit, he was a certified officer. That just saved us $13,300 by not having to put somebody through the academy. The current person who we're looking at is a certified officer. Again, a savings of $13,300 just in salary, not in benefits or anything else, not in uniforms, you know, all that other stuff. We'd have to, just salary alone, $13,300 by getting certified officers. If we can become a destination department, because we're competent, we treat our people well, and we respect what they do, people are going to want to come here and work. And I figure I'll throw in a bone for them. The CBA is coming up this year, so they're going to be asking for a raise, and they deserve it. So,
Keith?
So just to be clear about this, you listed the people off. Does that mean there's nobody in patrol cars other than you and the lieutenant?
no. So we have one sergeant, who is Sergeant Frisbee. And then we have, Officer Alette, Officer Muse, Officer Hunter. Officer Hunter is being trained by Officer Muse currently. He's our certified officer who just came over. I heard he's getting released on his own this Friday. They haven't told me that, but I heard them talking about it today. Night shift, we have Officer Averill and Officer Hatch. I think I got everybody. How many you got? It's 12 total, including me.
Sergeant and 7 officers.
I'm part of the team. 12 total.
We like to hear.
Yeah. I keep telling them that too. 11 plus you. I'm like, no, it's 12 of us.
There was 1 sergeant and 6 officers.
Well, 2 sergeants. One's on admin from the shooting. That's Sergeant McGuire, and then one's on military. So we have, structurally, we have myself as the chief, 1 lieutenant, 3 sergeants.
Who's the third?
So you got Frisbee, McGuire, and Montplaisir.
Okay.
Yeah. Just curious, the $550 for the books, are those RSA updates that you didn't buy?
No, see, they're all online.
Well, that's what I
Virginia, we were
thought.
required to keep a hard copy every patrol division, and they told me we're not, so I don't order those books. I've seen some old
So it
ones
was-
in the cabinet.
Yeah, I know what they are, because we used to have to buy them too.
Yeah, so until I haven't heard that we had to buy them, I'm making sure that we don't.
I don't think you
don't.
do, and libraries.
Yeah, I'm not reaching
libraries
out to
don't
buy them,
either.
because we can
So it
pull
was
everything
just-
online.
$550 was just random books that you would get.
And
if-
like you said, we're not ordering anything.
Yeah.
So if I don't use it next year, I'm gonna eliminate the line.
Well, put it somewhere
Everything's
else.
online.
Yeah.
But like I said, I haven't, because of our personnel shortages, my attention has been diverted all over the place. So I'm probably 80% into this budget. But I'm tracking everything now. Next year, it's not going to change much, but I'll add lines and I'll get it structured so it reads better instead of being color coded all over the place.
Nice.
It's almost like the colors.
Okay, I can put colors on there.
A lot of blue.
I'm here to make you happy.
I want pink.
Too many shades.
So let's see.
What color do you want?
Had we finished uniform equipment and on personnel supplies now?
Agreed.
I believe that's where we were at. So line 32 is no change. Line 49 is associated with that, and I believe that one's also no change. Yep, no change. So a total of $9,000 between those 2 lines. Personnel recruitment, so this one's going to be over this year just because we've had to fill so many vacancies. This is all your background checks, your polygraph, everything related to actually getting somebody certified to come in the department. So if we maintain our people, we're not paying all those expenses, just throwing that out there. So, but that's the only line for personnel recruitment. Going down to, nobody has any questions about any personnel expenses? All right, going down to the vehicle list. All right, so I did this one on behalf of Mr. Kirk. I changed some stuff because he always asked me $20,000 for maintenance and fuel and repairs, and so I split it up so it's more accountable. We have 8 vehicles, so when it was $20,000, you're looking at $2,500 per vehicle. I split it down in half, so you have maintenance, which are going to be your tires, undercoating, because we get all the patrol vehicles undercoated so they don't rust out, oil changes, everything like that, and then repairs if anything breaks. So we have $1,200 per car in each of those lines, and then I track it by car. Also, Beth tracks it. Beth tracks everything. Nothing gets by her. But those are where those 2 lines, the same amount. It was 20. It was just 10 in each line on 43 and 44. Anybody got questions on those? All right, so 46 is totally different. So they're used to upfitting costs in vehicles when we get them. So I'm all about us maintaining accountability for what we do, but the life cycle is different from vehicle equipment and the actual vehicles. Some stuff lasts longer, some stuff lasts less. So what I did is I took it out of the vehicle, put it in a line, but I did half the cost. So it makes sure we're still accountable. So essentially we have to make sure that we get 2 years out of equipment before we can upfit it. All right, so what I'm looking to do eventually is it'd be 1 car a year. That way we keep our cars under warranty, and it'd be about $24,000 to do that per year. Because a Tahoe is $34,000, a resale on it after 5 years is $10,000. So maintaining a fleet of 8 cars, $24,000 a year. That's very reasonable. My book. Especially when you're talking about patrol vehicles, and it keeps them under warranty. I'll tell you this, my first trip to the garage, Tom, who was working there then, had the Dodges, which are still up under warranty. One was on the rack for damage from it being too low. Another one was currently at the dealership. If the cars weren't under warranty, they'd be costing us thousands of dollars, just to let you know. Transfer case. I think the transfer case was busted on both of them from just hitting rocks and stuff. But we definitely want to keep cars under warranty. But what that is, that's all the upfit does. So to upfit a vehicle, it's about $17,000 for your decals, your equipment, your back seat, everything like that. Your radar, the computer's another $5,800, and then your siren is another $4,000. So the total cost of that is, what was it, $26,000. So pretty much I took half of that, put it in that line, so we can only upfit half of a car a year, if that makes sense. It holds us accountable because we have to get essentially our equipment 2 cars worth. No? Did I not explain that right?
It's not working.
Yeah, 10 years, exactly. So if I'm getting a car a year, instead of upfitting the car every 5 years, now I'm doing it every 10 years, is essentially what I did. It holds us accountable to make sure we're getting the most out of our equipment.
But whatever we've got in the cars we've got now cannot be transferred to whatever it is we go forward. And I know we're not discussing warrant articles, but I want to clarify that issue.
If we can, absolutely. So, and that's the line that, so we'll go right, actually it'll cover in our one-time purchases. So the computers, I talked to the computer company who does them. They last actually about 5 years. I was hoping 7 or 8 years. We just had 2 break this year. The other 3 are on that same life cycle. So that's why they're in the budget. I actually don't want to replace them until they break, because I would like to get those on a life cycle also. They unfortunately need to be on a life cycle every year, 1 a year. Well, if they last 5 years, and I'm getting a patrol car every year. So they're a little bit outside of what I had projected initially, just because they break more. But I don't want to replace them till they break either, if that makes sense, just to help me get them in the life cycle. Because if I buy them all between, 2 this year, 3 next year, now what am I doing 5 years down the road? I'm still trying to get that life cycle.
Do you have any told computers break faster than other things?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what the guy told me, the guy who was installing it. Again, I'm not gonna replace it if it didn't break.
No. Something's wrong if you're.
Right, but I have to plan for that life cycle and budget for it. But am I gonna replace it, arbitrarily just because it's time? No. And if we can still use it, am I gonna use it? Yeah, absolutely.
Question?
Yes, ma'am.
Once it breaks, how long is it to get a new one? Like, is there a time lag?
No, so maybe 3 or 4 weeks. Pretty much with a large ticket item like that, I'll come in and, hey, tell the board another one broke.
Well, a lot
Yeah.
depends on what broke means.
Well, we get Doug to go look at it, and he's like, yeah, it's dead. If he can fix it, he'll fix it, but
Some of us,
Wait a minute.
he does, my husband does, they don't just die.
What's breaking? Are they banging the keyboards too hard?
they're actually military-grade computers.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's not what we have. We have tablets right now.
They're,
Well, it's the internal, the software is going down.
software doesn't break.
No.
Well, it's no longer functional for our needs.
It's not working.
It doesn't work. You can't turn it on and run stuff.
That's not software that doesn't turn, that's hardware.
Okay,
Yeah.
so hardware. I thought hardware was, you actually gotta bang the keyboard and stuff.
That's
No.
part of the hardware too.
Okay.
But there's no
So
keyboard
the
in
stuff
it.
that runs the computer that makes it turn on doesn't work.
That's- okay.
But that's
I'm
due to the
skeptical
hardware.
of what your computer people are telling you.
Okay. I mean, you can be skeptical, but it is what it is. When we go to hit it, we can't use the car because we don't have a computer.
I get that. The question is, what are you doing to them? Because they don't,
Yeah.
microprocessors don't break.
Yeah, but they're being used by two different people like day and night, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah, but unless you're
Microprocessors don't
bouncing
break.
them
Not
on the
in 5
ground,
years.
they just don't break.
Well,
They
yours is
can.
probably sitting at your
No.
desk. Mine's going over bumps 20 hours a day.
No,
Okay.
not for
Your
that.
car, yes, that's affected by the bumps. There's nothing mechanical
There's no,
inside of here.
there's no moving parts.
We go through
Parts in
stress
here.
tests.
Not in tablets, but
I mean, if you're doing this over
Maybe-
somebody's head,
Okay.
Maybe he's just not using the technical word. It's
correct.
It's just not.
It's
not
broke.
working. It broke. The internal processor is not working any
Correct.
longer.
It's no longer a functional piece of equipment for us.
But to Keith's
Per our,
point, what is
my
going
point
on
is it
that's
should not be
causing
happening
it?
every 5 years.
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, seriously, that should not be
Well,
happening.
I agree. I was hoping to get 7 or 8 years out of them.
Yeah, and you should. You should.
Like I
Unless
said.
you change
And I only went off of one guy.
And that's a different thing.
No, I only went off of one guy, the guy who was installing, because he's the one who installs them, so he kind of knew. I would assume he would know how often he has to install them, and he'd said about 5 years. He's having to install new ones.
I'd be skeptical.
I'm hoping. I'm hoping you're right, because I'm good with 7 or 8, 9, 10 years.
Unless they're physically getting beat. That's
No.
a different thing.
Nah, nothing's being cracked in half or
No.
broken in
So
half or.
are these physically installed so that if the car is parked on, say, a cold night, they're in the car at night?
Yes.
Okay, that
Yes.
explains some of it. And the other question.
They're also built for that, though.
Yeah.
Oh, they are, yeah, okay.
Yes.
Well, I know military grade can go in the desert, I do know that
Mm-hmm.
much, but I didn't know about New England. So you're saying, basically, on this line, this is a maximum expenditure, and if the computers last, this number would be slightly lower?
Well, no, because if I don't have to replace a computer, I would be either getting decals, back seat partitions, back seats,
Okay.
the storage. It'd go to something to prep for an upfitted vehicle.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Because this was a weird one.
We have some computer designers and experts in this
Hey.
committee.
Build a better mousetrap. Get us a computer that won't break. We're happy with that. It can last 100 years.
Next time one breaks, bring it in so we can see what that means.
Yes.
Just give them all to me. I'll
you might have to fix it.
I don't think they're broken.
I don't know what we do with them when
Need a little
we're
love.
done.
Might be some sensitive information on them. I'm just saying.
Because they go through a lot of testing.
They don't have a hard drive, though.
Exactly. That's the kind of thing that would break, that's mechanical. But nothing in here is mechanical.
Yeah, I don't know.
Software doesn't break, doesn't wear out. It's not like tires. Now, if you're getting upgraded software, it may not run on older tablets. That's
No.
a different issue, though.
No, usually it starts blinking. And then okay, it's dead.
Does the screen turn blue?
I don't know if it turns blue. It usually just goes blank. And then we call Doug. Doug, our computer's dead. Doug's like, yeah, it's
So
done.
The screen is failing. Maybe that's what's going on. Okay, that's
That can happen.
Beyond my scope of expertise. I can only tell you it's broke.
okay.
We can't do our job if it's broke.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Just a quick question. On the cell phones that those are provided cell phones, not the personal ones.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, department issued cell phones.
Can they use it for personal use?
Most don't, because they can get anything on the phone can be FOIA'd for court or what have you. So they're very hands off of them. They use them for pretty much official business. I mean, they get internet, you can pull up maps, stuff like that, but they don't really text on them or anything. It's very, they're very restricted on them just because that's their mentality. Mine's the only one I carry, so everything's on mine. I do Facebook on mine and everything else.
So why do you have a phone system, other than a single line coming in, I get that, but other than that, why do you need a phone system?
We don't have coverage everywhere, so it's another resource. Plus, so, and I'll just use domestic violence as an example. We're required by RSA to provide resources to the victim where she has to call. We don't want her to use her phone because the person who was the abuser can look at her phone records and tell that she called that hotline. So we provide, right, so we give her the cell phone, put her in contact with the hotline to make sure. Yeah, and that's just one example. No, she just used it while we're there to talk to the actual worker.
No, I'm trying to understand, in the station, you have a PBX system. You were talking earlier that you encourage the officers to use their cell phones to save on long distance calls.
Correct, because pretty much every time they use the hard line, it's long distance.
I get that. So why have a hard line at all, other than maybe one coming in?
Good question.
And?
That's kind of where I was going.
No, I'm kind of with you. I'm looking at that one too because I don't like the desk phones, me personally.
Okay.
I have a cell phone issued. I put my cell phone on my, email. Anybody can call me on my cell phone. They're a little more traditional. Well, not traditional. They're a little more behind. So this goes into a different. My officers.
Okay.
So there's a picture of WAVE, a policing. You're either a warrior or a guardian. They're still in the warrior mode where they protect the public, so they're separate from the public. I was when I was initially, but policing has transitioned into the guardian mode where now you interact more with the public. You work on problem solving. It's okay to give your cell phone number to people. And they're still like, what? Cell phone number to people? Are you crazy? They could call me. Yeah, they could call you.
But for general questions, you would keep a landline and the secretary would be.
Oh, yeah.
To answer.
She's probably gets called the most out of anybody.
Right,
She gets calls all the time.
Yeah.
Walk-ins calls.
And that makes sense because I have called the station for things that are non-emergency and basically not related to a case, just a simple question. So that landline would still stay.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we keep the basics, but yeah, I'd love to get rid of the desk phones, me personally. Anything else on that one?
Talk more about the computers?
No.
I'm good then.
Matter of fact, I know who to go for resources. I'm gonna get y'all's number before I leave because when something breaks, hey, need verification it's actually broken.
No,
There's three of us, so.
Okay, I'll put you to work. Here it is, and I'm gonna find an old one. I don't know what we do with the old ones.
you have to pass Keith's house before you get to mine. That's all I'm saying.
Like I said, there's no hard drive, so there's no sensitive information on there. Apparently, it's just hardware.
Whoa, but that's not true.
See, I thought I learned something. Okay.
There's no hard drive, but there is storage. So yes, there could be sensitive information.
Oh, all right. Yeah, you couldn't get it in.
Yeah, there you go.
No other questions from me.
Okay, so the last one is the police one-time purchase. Like I said, 5 helmets because our current ones are expired in 2018. We have 3 terminals with, and these are they're called mobile data terminals. They're 3 that are old. We just put them in the budget in case they break because they're scheduled to break. That I was thinking. But would I replace them if they didn't break? No. No. No, they actually drive pretty good. So, no. We would wear helmets going to the shooting or, hostage barracks, something that's going to have a higher level of response.
When they're shot.
I wouldn't say not often. We definitely use them. Yeah. I mean, we're
Once
in
a
where
day?
everybody has a gun.
And they should.
Yeah. So, we kind of want to go into stuff prepared where we know everybody has a gun.
So you, on scene, you'll put a helmet on?
Could, depending on the call.
Okay.
But we definitely want it there for their use.
Proactive.
Oh, absolutely. There's different stuff we can carry. They have very small shields in their car. We have big ones, but they won't fit in the current cars. Another reason I'm trying to go to Tahoe's. Just protection. The trunks are full. They're full of all the equipment we carry. I'd be more than happy to show anybody who wants to see with the small shields. Some of you in here have actually got to demonstrate with the equipment. So, Tom, any comment?
Yeah, well, we,
No,
CIP.
I put a vest on him.
Did you hear what that was?
I put a vest on him and had him sit in the car.
Oh,
Yeah.
be careful.
With or without
Actually, I could
handcuffs?
barely see over the steering wheel. No, really, those seats are so, like, yeah, incredible.
They're low?
They're very low, yeah.
Well,
The trunk, as Chris mentioned, the equipment in there, you had to move 5 things in order to find the one thing you needed in the, I think you saw that, Keith, too, you were there. When we took a look at the equipment stored in the trunk of the Dodges and compared it to the larger space in the vehicle requested. Little salesmanship there.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
So with that load in the trunk in a Charger that's designed with a lot of weight in the front, even with cop suspension, to quote the Blues Brothers, you would have a lot of weight in the back that is causing damage sometimes if you hit a bump or a rock or something,
Well, what?
because you've got so much in the trunk.
Not necessarily. So it's the clearance, and I don't have that presentation. That was a previous presentation, but
Yeah,
I think it
we
was
have that.
5.7 inches of clearance, and of course we have a lot of roads
But
that
with a
aren't
full
paved.
load in the trunk, it makes
Oh
it
yeah,
so
I'm sure it makes it
That was my
compress
question,
some.
yeah.
Absolutely, there's a lot of weight back there.
Yeah.
Depends on the weight of the prisoner, too.
But yeah, and that first car that I was under, they got the Dodges come with plastic skid plates, and they're shredded.
Totally.
So I mean, they're definitely hitting a lot of stuff out there on the off roads.
We don't call those off-roads.
Yeah,
Those are main roads.
standard driving.
Some of us live on those off-roads,
I'm good
okay?
with it. I'm still trying to find out which one I went on by accident because my wife was yelling at me. I thought it was fun, but you use Waze, and some of them you don't know it's a really, really off road until you're on it. And I was like, it'll be fine. Look, it cuts right through, and yeah, it cuts through, but yeah, everything.
Some of them don't cut through. It looks like it cut through. They don't. They stop.
But yeah, any other questions? Anything you'd like me to hit more in depth? Any philosophies you want to hear?
I am curious about what the scheduling is for who's on at what time, like how many officers you have. I know that we haven't had 24-hour coverage, so I'm curious like how you're handling scheduling.
Depends on how many people I got. So they're supposed to have 2 on per shift minimum by CBA, which is good because you always want a close backup. Just like the fire chief, we are also an organization that relies on our resources outside. We go there, they come here. Typically, it's 1 patrol officer on day shift currently and 2 on evenings. I don't want to really give the hours of when that is. It's not 24-hour coverage, so people can plan accordingly. When they want to burglarize a place.
Fair enough.
So don't advertise it, right?
Exactly. So, but yeah. And just because our guys aren't there, state police cover that. So somebody's always out there. And we have made quite successful burglary arrests this year. They've actually made 3. Made 1 just recently. I'm just throwing that out there so burglars don't get the wrong idea that we're not out there at certain hours of the day.
Got it.
Well, and you did point out that a lot of wear is armed.
Yes, that's the priority. Yeah, shame on you. So, most of the wear is armed.
It's funny you said most of people in Ware have a gun. I would say it's plural. Most of them have
Oh, I would agree.
guns.
Well, I will give you, the dispatch called me at 4:30 in the morning because they were having an incident, and the male was alleged to have an arsenal. And my response was, it's Ware who doesn't have an arsenal. Has he threatened anybody? Has he, pointed anything? And the answer was no. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So, keeps everybody safe.
State of New Hampshire's like.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody questions?
Oh, what did we miss?
Yep, ACO.
Oh,
So new
Oh,
person.
I forgot about that.
So hers is just kind of standard. Wages and salary, above the line, she doesn't get benefits. So professional services, that's going to come into play if we have to take a animal to the SPCA. If the owner abandons the animal, all right, so we take control of a dog running down the street. We take it to the SPCA because the owner won't come get it. The owner still won't come get it. We have to pay the bill because somebody's on the hook. We had the facility down at DPW. So I've done 3 tours in K9. I've got a lot of experience with dogs. That's not an adequate facility. There's no sanitation. There's no running water. If a dog died, we'd be on the hook. So kind of an easy call. So I shut that down. We'll keep a dog a reasonable amount of time. After that, it has to go to SPCA, but there is the risk if the owner abandons the dog, we're on the hook for that. So that's why that's there. If we quarantine a dog at SPCO, that'll pretty much kill that $900. I think it's $750. If I'm not mistaken. So we're starting with that just because we don't know what kind of response we're going to get. We had electricity at that station by DPW. Has, yes, it's been shut off, so that line will be gone. Meeting seminars. So there's no real program to train at ACO, so I just provided her 100 hours to ride along with other people. She goes to seminars, so that's to make sure she can go to training because obviously she has no peers here. She has to go elsewhere for peers to ensure she's trained up. She's very enthusiastic and she's doing a really good job. She's going to be a good hire. Printing, she had no forms. The first 3 forms that we printed, I know we're already over $500 for that line. So that's definitely going to go up next time. Well, it won't go up. She'll have enough, but we'll have to see what else she has to do. Safety medical gear. So she's getting everything she needs out of my budget this year. It's probably $1,000 worth of stuff, which I took out of police supplies. So she'd only have to replace items which become contaminated to the point where they're unuseful or are damaged from this point forward. So that should be good with $250. Safety medical gear, that's the same thing. A lot of protective gear. AC fuel vehicle, she does not have a vehicle currently. Her vehicle was, in the words of the mechanic, no longer a viable option. So that went to auction. We got $800 for it. What's
400?
Oh, I thought you said 800.
I thought we got 6.
So we got some money for that vehicle, which surprises me.
Oh, yeah, it was last year, we had 300 for your cruiser.
Yeah, 800. Yeah, they just
So
said
what is she
6.
driving?
She's not. So she's driving her own personal car. She was going to drive the town truck. However, the airbag warning light is on. I'm like, you will not drive that because that's obviously a safety issue. So she's driving her car and she's getting mileage until we get her a car. So we want to get her a car as quick as we can.
Are we going to pay if she has to haul animals cleaning of her car?
Yeah, we would have to.
Yeah.
Would have to pay to clean the town vehicle. What's the difference?
Well, that's what I'm saying is that's her
Yeah.
personal vehicle.
She is getting I already authorized her to get a protective cover after.
Okay.
I told her I wouldn't personally use my vehicle, but she's like, she was willing. I was like, okay. She asked for a cover. Absolutely, you can get a cover for your seat. I did get her a really good kennel to help transport. So, and of course, if the guys are on duty and they're not on message, they can transport her also. It's not like her car is the only one she uses. Just if she needs to, if we're not available, and there's a call. But yeah, the sooner we get her a vehicle, the better. But we did our own fuel line. Even if we do get her a vehicle, we can track how much fuel she's using rather than just police fuel. Vehicle maintenance tires. Kind of irrelevant currently. No vehicle to maintain. So but we'll see. And then shelter maintenance, again, everything's going to the SPCA, so nothing to maintain currently. Any questions on that one? Kind of simple currently, but it'll be developing as we go forward.
How long has she been on board?
Couple months.
Are you seeing a lot of activity for her?
Oh, yeah. So they did a check of how many calls for service she had. In 3 months, she was at 93, I think it was. 93 animal calls. We
Not
have
just dogs and cats, but, because we've
Yeah,
got
I actually heard
we've
it.
got cows.
Yeah,
and everything.
I heard my first cow on the road. I was quite happy with that. I called the wife. Because that was one of the reasons that, I want the simpler life. So I called, hey, cow on the road. We're here.
Bad horses go through our yard.
But yeah, and we've had, a bear run and hit a car and deer get hit and stuff like that.
Were
And
you here for the peacock that was running?
I have not. I see the chickens
The
out all
show
the time.
chickens that were there.
No, I see them on.
Fancy chickens. Too.
Yeah.
You can see them.
They're always by the road. And of course, we had our duck if you monitor Facebook. And I was like, you haven't even caught the duck. Why are we putting a duck on that we haven't caught? If we caught the duck,
You
okay.
couldn't catch a duck.
They can catch the duck. Actually, we had a lady.
Challenge to me.
We had a lady from Massachusetts who had her ducks drive up, bring food, bring her duck, so her duck could talk to the other ducks, so she could lure him in and take him back home. But didn't happen. The duck's still
That
around.
really happened?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Only aware.
It was a nice looking duck, but
Moving to New Hampshire.
yeah, I was like, "What are y'all doing? Catch the duck, and then you can put it on Facebook." But no. But it did get a lot of hits, so I couldn't be too mad at him. It was a popular topic.
Also, dog in a pool, didn't she say?
Oh yeah, that was
on,
very popular. That made news. So.
That was
Yeah.
huge.
That wasn't just New Hampshire, so.
No.
No.
Yeah, that was Mass and everywhere else. We got her hat after that one too. Just saying.
I didn't see a line item for that.
No, just police supplies. Here, take a hat. Actually, I authorized her to use her Harley Davidson hat. So bad hair day.
Does she have set hours, or does she?
No,
go-
on call as she's needed.
So 2:00 in the morning if we've got
Well-
cows out on the road.
So what we did is, she works day shift hours, pretty much. Well, she's on call anytime. Well, what happened? We'll call her on the phone because she's also issued a cell phone up to, I think it's 7 p.m. After that, we'll send her a text because she does have young kids. And if she can respond, she'll respond. On weekends, too, we'll send her a text. Hey, we've got this. Do you want to respond? And if she doesn't, we just handle it.
Okay. Any questions? More stories to tell? Are you
after
enjoying
9.
the change?
Absolutely.
You seem like you're enjoying it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, this is easy. Except for, I'm learning stuff, too. It's not just a magic pixie dust box.
It's magic smoke.
That's right.
All electronics work with magic smoke. If you take the smoke out, they don't work anymore.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, certainly.
Naomi, you're up.
Yeah, just one. So Lori and I had talked, and some of you that sat through how we set the tax rate, I just want to share a little information with you guys.
Thank you.
'Cause as you can see, we gave you guys percentages next to the budgets for increases. And, I think the ACO has the highest increase at 39%, but that's just because of the fact that take a small budget and you add a little bit of money and it's a big number.
Calculator.
So what I've provided you was that Beth put this together for you, just as you think about things going forward. As you think about things going forward, this was your 19 warrant. You vote, obviously, it's easy, yes or no. The no's are in the darker shade. Gives you the article number, kind of the purpose. What was proposed, what was approved, less some revenues. So when we set the tax rate, there's always been a question of the revenue or the net assessed evaluation that we use, and we've always used conservatively, largely for this nice surprise. So what people voted on, if you took the little pamphlet that we mailed to every home, you should have expected $4.68 if you added everything up. But because everybody worked hard and worked together, we had more revenues than we anticipated, it was actually $4.48. So there was a difference of 20 cents on the actual impact. And then from there, we did take some out of the surplus that brought us below 5%. So that wasn't actually your tax rate. But I just wanted to show you the fact that, you know, it sounds like an awful lot, but that's what everybody said they wanted to pay for. So that's how I think it works.
Can you help me on the bond? I know we didn't pay anything this year because it's delayed a year.
No, you'll see in your debt service when we come forward, the bond payment would be in there, but not for 19.
That's what I meant.
Yes.
Question.
Go ahead, Tom.
It relates to the paperwork that you passed out on Monday for the other departments. Is there a double interest payment coming up? Because the interest was like $118,000, but it should have been like 58 or something like that. Pardon?
You do a principal and interest and an interest, so you pay 2 interests.
So we're not getting out scot-free on the interest for this year because you got 2 of them next year. And then after that, it will be 1 interest payment.
Right. Don't you
It'll
do?
still be 2.
Yeah, because I think what you do is you have one time a year you do 1 principal and interest, and then one time a year you just do interest. That's how the
Well,
bond works.
again,
out.
I'm kind of getting ahead because, you know, you're not presenting that tonight, but
Right.
on the paperwork from earlier, you had the payment on the bond, this was for the 2020 budget, and then the interest payment was $118,000. And that's far more than the 2-point-something% that we would have been paying. It would really be double that.
Yeah, but it's my understanding, I mean, the school, I do the school treasury, so one time a year, you have a big payment, which is some principal and interest. And then in August, we pay just interest. So we do interest twice, principal once. That's how that was set
Get
up.
you the schedule.
But we can share that schedule. That's
Yeah, I'll wait until we get it in front of us.
Because you shouldn't see double
because it,
payments in one year.
No, so your interest is, you're gonna pay 2
Split
interest
up.
payments.
It wouldn't be fair to the group here if I
Yeah,
pulled
and
that
that's
out
fine.
now because they don't have it in front of them, but.
So I guess I'm
do have a
gonna
question
throw
on
out the
that.
bigger question to you guys, and Lori and I talked about this a little bit, it might be a little premature, but you've kind of seen the bigger 3. I guess I'm gonna throw out there, before I come back again, which I'm willing to do, obviously, is there something that you were thinking might be reasonable?
No, we haven't
3%,
discussed that.
5%, 6%?
we
Can I
haven't.
ask individually what your thoughts might be?
I don't think that would be fair.
I don't think that's a question that you should be putting anybody on the
Well, I
hook
just thought
for.
I could sharpen my pencil before I came back.
Let us have time to digest.
Okay, well, window's getting closed here. It's now December, so.
Right, but we've been waiting, so.
Right, but we had 3 weeks, you could have seen some of this, just saying.
So is there a compromise here, because I can understand both sides of the conversation?
No, I mean, last year, I listened to all your comments, and then we kind of went back and looked at things. So before making the special trip back,
Right.
is there something that's really bugging you that stands out tonight?
At this point, this is the first time I've seen this, so I personally want to sit and digest this and study some figures. I don't know about the rest of us, but it's something that we need to talk about
Yep.
and think, because taxes went up high last year.
But that's what everybody wanted.
I understand that, but by the same token, we have a lot we have to consider, and that's something we will discuss.
Yep, and this only shows my
Right.
side of the pie, which
Right.
I understand.
And,
At the same time, we're all in it together.
right,
And at
and
the
we
same
still
time, I
have.
want to be treated the same as everybody else.
Right, and so far, we haven't said to any department,
Okay.
you're good to go.
Yeah.
We're just
Well, I have to
still-
say that I think you guys admit it or don't admit it, I don't care if you want to even answer me, but I think the 3 largest departments that takes care of the good share of our funds, they did a good job of what they gave you. There's some trimming that we can do, which we know about. We've had some discussions, but I think overall, there's not much more than 3%. Fire department's 0. You didn't want to talk tonight, remember?
Chris?
Well, I think we had 16 default budgets on the town side.
Yeah, I know, we
So
looked at-
in real
we did 20
dollars, we're not operating on a 2020 number because we never.
Trying to get there.
We can't get, well, it's a hard thing to get caught up when you have 16 default budgets.
Mm-hmm.
So I think before we make any decisions, we want to see what the school side is bringing to us. Because they haven't had 16 default budgets.
And we didn't stop discussion now. I don't, doesn't bother me. I just didn't know, we had a conversation.
Yes.
And I don't think zero is feasible. You know, I think flatlining is gonna be,
Yeah.
To Chris's point, a lot's going to depend on what rolls out of the schools, and that has nothing to do with warrant articles for them or for us, because right, wrong, good or bad, the group that takes the hit is the town.
Yeah, we still.
And can I just say something, just because the public can't see this, like, I know that Lori has said several times that people are upset about the tax increase, so I just, like, because people can't see this, so I'll just read up. So 2016, the increase from prior year was 8%. 2017 was 1%. 2018 was 10%. And 2019 was 7%. So we, other than 2017, which was 1%, which was a default year, was a default year,
We've been default.
then 2019 is actually less of an increase than the 2 prior years, 2018 and 2016.
And the average is 6.5.
Yes. So, I mean, it's not, I realize that we don't want our taxes going up. However, when you look at it that way, it's not,
No,
just for the public's knowledge, because they hear, sometimes they, you know, we are influential, and they should have all the facts, that it's not this astronomical increase that some people think it is. It's actually less than the prior year.
These are astronomical increases, though.
Not when you talk about that we've had 16 default budgets. Like, we can argue back and forth of what, I think it all personal perspective.
Very good.
Right, it's personal perspective, and it's different philosophies. The only thing I'm going to say is, if you could put that someplace on the website for people to see.
What?
These little facts and figures that are down here at the bottom, or even if you could put this whole thing on, this is what you voted for, this is what it comes out to, hello, this is how it affects you, so if you now understand how your taxes are going to roll this year, they need to see this, because a lot of times when they vote for things, even though we post it's going to be X amount per thousand at the deliberative session, I'm not the only person that's had somebody walk up to them and say, well, I didn't know it cost that much. And I said, let's see, they've sent these things out. We discussed them at the Finance Committee. The Board of Selectmen discussed them. You know, they're at the deliberative session. And they're like, well, we didn't know that when we voted for it.
And we're a community that honestly doesn't have a very high tax rate, to be honest with you.
But
We're
that's
one of the lower
part of the
communities.
reason a lot of people live here. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, the original question about whether we should make a recommendation. I would like to see the whole package of the budget before we do anything like that.
Because I know one year, Tom, a couple years ago, there was like, we don't want to see more than 4%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was said way long ago.
But
and-
my philosophy, and it's probably held over from another role that I played, is that we want to see the needs of the town first.
Yep.
Not an arbitrary percentage, what is needed, and then we can discuss that, and if we need to back off, and we had to ask people to go back to the drawing board and see if they could make do with something else. But, you know, I would want to see people put out, these are the needs
Which is
of
what you
my
have in front of
department.
you for those departments.
And then we'll figure out the percentages and what works and what doesn't, rather
I mean,
than.
I'd sincerely be upset if we have departments putting in things that they can do without, but they're asking for them, so that if I turn around and we turn around and we say, you know, this isn't working, you need to do something. If they can trim their budgets and it isn't necessary to begin with for us to go into that part, it makes you start looking at what's being asked, and from that, and I mean, this is my 6th year on the Finance Committee. So when I keep seeing that, well, we could reduce this, I'm sort of wondering, what are you doing to begin with, and are you pushing the label, this is not you, this is the theory of, if you can reduce it, why aren't we doing that right off the bat? So I'm with Tom, I'd like to see the whole package.
And a lot goes into it. I'd hope we hadn't gotten this much snow and had 48 hours that the guys were out.
Yep.
That plays a whole different as to.
Oh, it wreaks havoc on his budget.
You know, everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
some
I'd
of the
like to
things-
just, sorry, Tom.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just, just one comment in regards to the comments you were making. I see guys like Benji who came and I was, quite a few meetings with him where he said, look, I need two, and I figured it was, I need two trucks, but I think it's reasonable to ask for one because I don't think the town's gonna approve it. So I don't think everybody puts or pads their budget in this
No.
town. There's evidence that shows that that's not the case. So, yes, I'm sure there are people that are, but there are also people like Benji, which I witnessed, who
Right.
doesn't think he's gonna get even what he needs. So I agree with the overall perspective, which is let's look at the whole package.
Yeah, it's, just as an example, one of the things that was cut out of the budget last year, it wasn't padding. It was like, we look at the highway department, and he had a line for calcium chloride for the roads, like he talked about tonight. And when we wanted to see the budget trimmed, he trimmed it, but that doesn't mean he didn't need it. He just had to take it from the
We
road
still did it.
reconstruction
We
money.
just took it to road reconstruction.
So what he's saying is that this belongs in the maintenance line in your budget. It's not part of the road reconstruction money. But in order to, save a couple of cents on the tax rate, he went back and took it out, and then he ended up having to spend the money out of the road reconstruction money instead.
Yeah.
So, it's not a matter of people going back and saying, well, you're just taking out the padding. There has to be some sacrifice when they make their, I believe that. If they're gonna cut something out, then it's gonna be a sacrifice. You're either gonna have to get the money someplace else, or it's something they truly have to go without that they needed to begin with.
Right, and I don't think what you were presented tonight, and I don't think going forward, what we have to present either is, there's nothing padded anywhere. It's really, I'll just use Parks and Rec. We have fields, but you build a field, but you don't wanna do anything. You don't wanna make, that to me is crazy. I spent years with Parks and Rec, and that's just one, we have nice fields. We have a lot of kids that use them, but that budget's very small. $5,000 a year for maintenance, 3 fields, that's really not.
Does the town have any contingency funds? So let's say we had a giant flood. I remember one year we did have a giant flood.
Yeah.
Do we have any funds for things like unanticipated major expenses?
No, that's why you're supposed to keep 5% or more in, so that if you have emergencies, you can still make your monthly budget plus cover those
Yeah,
things.
because I remember a couple of years being asked to give money back just to make it to the end of the year, out of operating budgets, that, as Tom pointed out, something would not get purchased or done because of that.
Yeah, I think typically, I don't know what you're doing this year, but typically, the town has said, everybody wait on your purchases, say by mid-November at the latest. And so that if you run into that kind of an emergency, you have some money on hand, but then you could make the purchases when it gets to the end of the year. The same things you had in your budget, just hold up and don't buy them unless they're absolutely necessary.
Which, again.
Which doesn't help the department if they were already approved on a warrant article to do something, or they had plans to do it in their budget. To protect them, they actually need to get it done earlier in the year so that the last 3
Yeah.
months, they don't get
Well, it wouldn't be
screwed out.
warrant article because
No, it's
that's a
operating.
Right, but
different
a lot
pocket.
of times, they get pushed back because of that, so they're almost smarter to go ahead and get it earlier in the year.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. That's what I'd do.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think, we've, like I said, I think we've had some great conversations, and I think there's a lot of understanding. We've prided ourselves years, again, our legal line's been over $100,000 for a couple of years.
This year, you're doing
This
better.
year, we are just shy. This year, we haven't even gone over budget yet, and it's only December. We still have December's bills, but the $68,000 that was approved, we're just under that.
Nice.
So I think there has been a lot of progress. He's gonna take it all the credit, but, he's only been here half the time. But, so we've worked hard, I think, and we've worked hard to present you what we need and to keep the community safe. you know, in all directions. So.
Well, I thank you for
Yeah,
everything you've done and continue to
Oh,
do.
that's fine. Thank you.
Now I'm going to look to the various people who are on the various committees. I'm going to ask for anybody who attended the town meetings, if you have anything you want to offer from all this since we did the town tonight.
You know, I gotta tell you, what I saw, and I'm gonna speak generally. I saw a lot of the increases that I saw were based on what the taxpayers voted on. I mean, that seemed to be the theme across the board. Sorry for being so general, but consistently I saw that. And I saw very few things that were even an area of concern, in my opinion. I don't know if you're looking for me to call it something in particular now, or you're just looking for
No,
my
I'm
over.
I'm
Okay.
asking what you've gleaned for, if there was something you wanted to say, hey, I'm concerned about this, we might look at this, or
Well,
no, I'm okay.
I got to tell you, the only thing that I was concerned about is I saw, from a percentage standpoint, the proposed increase in salary for the librarian, just because it was 40%.
Is that a warrant article?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, that was in the budget,
Part of the library budget.
part of the library budget.
You know, that'll come up.
Yeah, so again, I didn't necessarily want to start it. That was the only thing that I saw for me that was an area of
But wasn't
concern.
that because they went from part-time to full-time?
No,
No.
it's a proposed raise.
Yeah, but
Naomi?
that's on top of a raise
gonna
when he
interrupt
was
this.
hired.
The
Yeah.
point was that there's a proposed raise for the librarian, a 40% proposed raise. Is this a warrant article, or is this something that's been put in the budget? So is it a warrant article, or is this in the budget?
It's in the budget.
Proposed budget, I don't see that.
A 40% increase?
$20,000 raise.
Good to know.
So again, I assumed that we would talk about it, but other than that, you know, I even heard, you know, Benji just did, in my opinion, I think he did a really good job explaining what his needs were, and the equipment, and why, and when, and all of those things. And there was no huge red flag for me. If the taxpayers, you know, if we think that they're willing to pay for it, that's a different story. But I thought it was explained very well. Chief, I've heard him speak 3 different times, I think. And it made a lot of sense. I mean, what the investments were, the investment in the equipment for the future, not just this year, the subsequent years. I gotta tell you, I expected to find more stuff that I was gonna be uncomfortable with. So that's my perspective.
No, I'd follow along with that. The presentation, certainly from the police, has been pretty thorough on that. Now, I've missed a couple of things that have been out of
And
town
this is
last 2
just the
weeks.
budget, not the warrant articles? Okay.
Agree.
How about you?
Yeah, what I saw is, I thought some real leadership on the part of all the department heads. As I listened to their presentations and listened to them not just talking about the immediate needs, but really, this is what we need to build for the future, and that was a theme through all of the 3 major presentations over the weeks that they've been doing that. So, you know, Bob, the fire department, again, he's really got it laid out as far as a future vision for the department that he's building toward. You heard the chief of police tonight. You know, he too is really gung-ho on being part of a team with his men and moving forward in that way. And if he gets that extra person that we've been working for so long to be full staff, we'll see what he can do with that then. And Benji, as usual, was thorough and, you know, presents things well, keeps a sense of humor, and, you know, I think we can really, I was really very pleased with the leadership that I saw at those presentations, and you saw it tonight. I don't have to tell you that.
Comments, questions, concerns?
I did have a question. Are we still, is the fire department still holding on to their revenue?
Yes.
Oh, okay, the special revenue, they're
And
still, okay.
yes, and that's,
I know that was the discussion we had last year.
that
as
is
far
not
as-
something for this committee to get involved with.
Okay. I didn't know if it was rolling back into,
No, and it is, again, we are not involved with any of those streams. That is strictly up to taxpayers. We do not get into any of that weed stuff.
I didn't have any.
Megan?
Are we going to the Ware School Board or
No,
you?
right now, just your
Okay, I was
opinion
sorry.
on-
I was looking at my notes.
I'll get to you on the school in a second.
I'm good.
Okay, Chris?
I'd like to see a copy of the library budget.
I too would like a copy of that, please. Does everybody want a copy of the library budget? Can you forward it to us, please?
Can I just put some perspective? Like, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I haven't seen it. However, last year, there was an automatic raise for the police chief and the fire chief and everything, and no one got all up in arms about it. Everyone was just like, this is the way it is, and they kind of let it go. Like, what?
There wasn't one.
No, it was the fire chief, I'm sorry. So, I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, I'm just saying that we're making a big deal of it, but the fire was like, we kind of like glossed over it and just kind of let it go.
Life and death services are very different from library in my book, but that's just my opinion.
I agree, I was just putting some perspective
I know.
out there, just
I know.
saying that, like, you know, last year we just kind of,
Well, the reason I wanted to see the budget is because he got a substantial increase over the previous director rate when he came on board.
Yes.
But he also maintained a level-funded budget.
Yes.
So something was moved around line-wise. So, you know, you can say, maybe they couldn't hire somebody for $38,000. Okay. And they kept the budget level funded. That's skillful means doing that. That's why you can't condemn something until you see the whole picture.
Correct.
yes.
I think that's a really good point because I won't get into what my spouse does, but in her experience and with other towns, the first thing I did was ask her about it, and she gave me a perspective that I had not considered, is that librarians in some towns get paid a significantly larger amount of money than what's even proposed, but it's all relative to what the responsibilities are and what they do for the town.
Correct.
I had no idea. So that's why I think it should be a discussion, and, you know.
First, we need to see it. in order to
I see
figure it
one
out.
number, it's an area of concern, and in my opinion, now you go look at the evidence, you've asked for the budget, and I think that's a great discussion to have.
Matt,
Regarding what we've seen tonight,
what you know of the town budgets as they've been presented to date?
well, I have a general question that maybe we should reflect on and have a discussion at a future meeting, which is, why do we consistently see budget increases that are greater than inflation and the town population increase? I mean, if we want the same maybe I have an answer, maybe the town wants more service. And in that case, it makes sense for the budget to go up faster than inflation. But if we want the same amount of service, then we shouldn't be seeing these large increases.
And that's a good thing. We can have that discussion at one of our meetings coming forward. That's a good question to ask. Anything else on that
No.
point? I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. You're new
Nicole.
to me, Nicole.
I am impressed with Benji and the chief of police in trying to get a handle on the life cycle maintenance that doesn't seem to have been addressed in past years. And unfortunately, it costs more at the beginning to get to that point. I was not here, and looking at the numbers, why was there a 10% increase?
Two.
On those,
Tax rate.
on the tax rate. And then I didn't catch why there was just, that one year there was just the 1%.
It was a default.
Okay.
That was
So, in listening to their presentations, they have talked about past years where they may have needed 2 trucks and didn't get any.
Correct.
So, to get it under control, this is a good thing, this is progress, and unfortunately, it's gonna cost a little bit more at the beginning in order to get to that point.
Keep in mind, when we're talking about budget, what we had a presentation tonight was the operating budget. And it didn't include the warrant articles. So as we include the warrant articles, that's all part of that bottom line, that $4.48. I had 43.
That's not what we set the tax rate at, though.
Oh, I think you set the tax rate at 443 for the town.
We gave back we gave back $50,000 that we didn't have.
Yeah, anyways,
Which brought us down to below 5%.
yeah. But it's a totality. It's all of those warrant articles together as well as this. And you're right, you know, we're gonna be buying a truck a year. And so when you look at that, yes, it's a lot of money, but if we bought one this year, we pay the same thing next year and add a truck, we're not raising the tax rate, we're keeping it flat. You know, the same thing if we ever get the police department up to where that they've replaced all their junk cars over there, then again, you'll have a flat increase. It'll be an increase, but you gotta get it up there first, and then as you add a car a year and you buy a car the previous year, there'll be almost no difference between that as it moves ahead. And we do have, you know, the good fortune of having the taxpayers many years ago approve this use of ambulance billing fees to buy big pieces of equipment for the fire department, like fire engines and ambulances and so forth, so.
So you don't see the spike
So you
to the
don't
tax
see
rate.
that spike, you know, it's evened out.
Okay, schools.
Which-
Let's
where?
start with John Stark.
Who wants to go?
Speak now, please.
I had a question for Neil, but he's not here, so I don't know. There was a budget workshop that I didn't go to. They only gave us the draft budget, and it's not
Complete.
It's not instructive, may I say. They are going to give a much more explicit and finalized budget because they've had their workshop.
When do they plan to do that?
I do not know, but we go to their meeting next week, so we
Please
don't know.
shoot me a text. I will attend that meeting.
Okay. They do say that they're going to have a lot of capital reserve and/or expendable trust expenses this year. Check me if I'm wrong. A vehicle replacement, a bridge, a generator, irrigation sprinkler system.
A bridge?
They have a bridge someplace up by their athletic field. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a, yeah, it's towards the athletic field behind the building.
Upgrading the septic, the emergency road that is like their second means of egress, some paving, window replacement, and track upgrades. So I would say those are either going to be in warrant articles to remove from capital reserve.
Which is fine.
It would be helpful if we knew what the balances are on expendable trust funds and what expendable trust funds they have.
I can get that for you.
Yeah.
Shoot me an email on that, and I will make a call to Zach.
Okay, okay. What else do you have?
The extra funds.
Yeah,
The
right.
$160,814. There was much discussion on what to do with it.
Somebody want to tell me, is this a capital reserve fund? What is this extra funds money?
They claim it's a pass-through from the state of New Hampshire, that it's a one-time,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ware School Board talked about it as well.
Yeah, and I think the emphasis on that is that if it's one time, you should use it for one-time expenses. And so
Correct.
it doesn't get folded in to.
Into that
you know,
budget,
as an
yeah.
expectation for the following year.
That's what the Ware School Board was doing as well. Theirs was like $390,000, and they were going to use it because they said it wasn't guaranteed, and that they were going to use it for one-time expenditures.
Okay, so you have a question about the John Stark, what they're doing with it?
Well, there was discussion about it, and one of the comments was extra funds to go back to taxpayers, so,
Can you add that into your email for me, please?
if I can remember that. Yeah.
And I will have some questions for Zach. Any other things on John Stark?
Well, I have the numbers on our enrollment. They're down
Oh,
quite
yeah.
a lot.
Is
Their
their budget going up?
their budget is going up, and their enrollment has dropped from 651 to 617.
How does a
Which is a
budget
pretty
go up if you're
significant drop.
dropping enrollment?
That's an excellent question.
Do we have an excellent answer?
Not from them yet.
yeah.
Okay, so that's another question we need to train into.
what is the significant drop in enrollment?
That's enrollment.
What, like, do you have an like, how much of a drop?
What do you mean? I said 651 to 617.
That's a big drop.
You want the percentage?
Class.
Yeah.
Do you mean by town or?
No, she just meant the number, she didn't hear the
Right,
number.
okay.
Typically, the enrollment doesn't vary that much here and where. I mean, it might change like 10 or something per year, so this is a large step.
But now we're getting into the years where you're gonna get into the years as we're coming up, where there are going to be years where, like our third grade class is a huge class, and then the second grade class is really small, and then kindergarten or preschool coming in is gonna be huge.
Right.
So I think this is gonna start to be expected, that enrollment for some years for John Stark may go down slightly, because one of those booming classes isn't in there. So like the senior class, I wonder, was one of that just left, was one of those booming classes, and they left, so now we're seeing a 4 years, like a high school that the enrollment went down, and then next year, when 8th grade, because I'm pretty sure that the 8th graders are a booming class, that's probably not the right word to use, but anyways, that next year enrollment will go up. I mean,
Right.
I'd be interested to
If
find
you
out.
go down, you shouldn't be going up radically.
You know,
Well,
This might be a blip.
I think it's just a blip based on like what
Yeah.
I know of the younger
but
grades.
in high school, you're talking about programs. If you're talking about, say, an elementary school, and if you lose 20 third graders, then you say, well, that's a whole class, so we should save money because we don't need that extra teacher. Or if you add 20, you're going to have to hire an extra teacher. But at a high school level, you're talking about maintaining programs. And if you take that 50 kids or so, spread it over four years of freshmen through seniors, and you're at the same time trying to maintain the programs for the kids that you have there, you might not see a decrease based just on the enrollment, because it is different. You can't just get rid of 2 teachers arbitrarily because you're going to cut some programs out if you do that. It's not as clear as it is on an elementary level.
Well, Stark did say, and I think it's premature for us to have this discussion because we haven't seen their full budget. But they did say, just in general talking terms, if a program is under-enrolled, they're not going to offer it for that year.
Right.
Good.
Just a comment, it's a small thing really, but one of the things that they were talking about is the egress road. And when we had our hazard mitigation plan reviewed and revised here by 2 years ago, that was one of the things that was stressed there, that there's just one way in and out really that's in that road. You come to it before you get to the main driveway off to your right. Really needed to be upgraded so that there would be an extra escape route or whatever you want to call it from the school grounds.
Where is this road?
Well, it isn't. It's more like a dirt path that's wide enough for a car to
Where
get through.
is it?
If you're approaching the school from where, before you get to the main driveway, you look off. It looks like a tractor trail or something that goes up in there.
Oh, okay.
And the need to have that, so it is a usable route to travel in an emergency situation.
Okay. Anything else on John Stark?
Yeah, they mentioned that their GMR is actually decreasing, amazingly enough. Yep. And also, I was pretty impressed. I raised the point that we'd made in this committee at our last meeting, that we loved seeing the long-term capital expense outlook for the town, and that we wished the schools would do that too. Zach said, actually, they do generate that document, so he was surprised that we had not seen it.
Oh, did he give it to you?
No, he said it's on their website.
Participate in the program.
I couldn't find it.
I couldn't find
That's
it either.
okay?
But if it exists, then we may be able to obtain it.
Yes, but now we will obtain it, because after your email, I will make sure I ask
Unless
Zach.
it was on the SA, see, the thing is, a lot of this is worked out through the finance officer at SAU 24. So locating it, maybe I was looking on the wrong website.
But when we're working with them, they can get us the information we need without us going and hunting and pecking all over the place. That there's no reason they can't. They're all generated on computers. It should be, if we need it, they can kick it out. It's not hard. It's merely generating the question and saying, this is what we need. Can you please ship it over? And they will do it. Zach's great at that. The SAU is really good at that. And if you have any questions about the information I sent you, let me know.
Okay.
Okay, middle school, grade school.
Where schools?
Yes.
So we talked about it. They said New Hampshire increased their aid by $390,000. The money. I heard the money will go back to the town, additional revenues. So it's not guaranteed forever. So looking at one-term expenditures, they gave their enrollment numbers. I wrote down the number. I don't think they talked about the prior year. I don't believe that it went down. They did talk about that they did some testing about the runs for kindergarten, and that it was well over an hour. So they decided they could do nothing over 45 minutes, but they also did realize they only needed 4 bus runs instead of the 6. So it would be $67,000 that they're going to have to put in the budget and the default. And then they just talked about that they were going to have to hire 3 kindergarten teachers, 3 additional paras if they went the full-day kindergarten route. The school board has not decided which way they're going. Lorraine asked for direction, and the school board said that they needed to think on it.
Okay.
So they've not decided which way they are going.
Right, they were gonna put together a working group to brainstorm on like how they're gonna handle it and what path they're gonna take forward, because they hadn't decided how they were gonna present it. So we were hoping to get an answer in the next.
Can you send me a text, please, on when their next meeting is?
They
Yes,
have
it's on the 17th.
But they have their
Workshop?
they have a workshop meeting.
That was supposed to be this past Monday,
But
it
it
snowed out.
got rescheduled.
the same
So it
day,
is
I think.
now on the 17th
Yeah, at 4:15.
at 4:15.
Okay, please, Megan, send me a text on that.
And then tomorrow night, I was invited to be part of the Space Needs Committee, that they're looking at how they can do kindergarten, because they had a discussion about, in order to do kindergarten, full-day kindergarten, how do we do this? Do we move preschool? Do we put art and music on a cart? Do we move another grade up to the middle school? Do we rent space in town? So they're trying to explore options, which is part of the board trying to decide what they want to do. Is, how can we do this? Because we just don't have the room at Center Woods.
Mm-hmm.
We have run out of room. So it's kind of, I think space needs to figure out the kindergarten, but also to figure out our town in general, because we have so many new developments coming in. We are going to overrun the elementary school.
Part of the problem last year when the situation came up, we were at this time last year, and they hadn't done the assessments and figured it out.
And I think that a major part is, it's not blaming it on the school board. I mean, it's kind of really on the state, is that they pushed us into, the school board, I think, was going to from my understanding, was going to let this year go, was not going to ask for full-day kindergarten. And then this busing situation, and they're kind of pushed now into that they have a game day situation again, where they need to figure out what they're doing. And the school board, they don't like it, but unfortunately, it's the situation that we've been put in, that we need to make a decision. And they keep bringing up that people didn't like last year. They felt it was rushed, and we can't. They realize what we've been saying, and they're taking it to heart, and that's why they are taking their time before saying this is the route we're going to go. They are trying to make fiscal decisions, in my opinion, and from what I've seen, is that they aren't rushing into it. They really are trying to, but they have been kind of put up against a wall. Like, we found out in October about the busing, and that we were now going to have to do busing for kindergarten. So,
Could you explain that? I missed that somehow.
okay, so the state has now said that all towns have to bus kindergarten through 8th grade.
12.
That are, no, it's through 8th.
I wrote down 12.
But I think everything they've said is kindergarten through 8th, which I thought was interesting, but I'm like, we transport high school, but the state doesn't require it, whatever. We're not gonna go there. So we'll say kindergarten through whatever.
Even including half-day.
Yes. So they're saying that we have to transport kindergarten. And what the school board is saying is, then this means that the morning, when the kids go in the morning for morning kindergarten, and when they come home in the afternoon for afternoon kindergarten, we're covered with our existing bus routes. But that period of the half day where the kids in the morning have to go home and the kids in the afternoon have to go to school, we need to add bus routes. And they're saying that would be about 4 buses to add. And they experimented with different things, and that what they said is they have to drop off the kids and then pick up the kids to bring to the afternoon. And that's, what did I say, $67,000. And I mean, it's lower than what they were estimating. They were saying originally it was going to be almost $100,000. And that's the situation that they're in. It's like, okay, well, do we pay the $67,000 to do the buses? And then this also brings into other factors like, bathroom breaks and when are they going to eat lunch and things like that. But I mean, it is what it is.
Comes on the parents' problem, not the schools.
Yeah, anyways, not for it. So that is the situation they are with right now with kindergarten. They're kind of between a rock and a hard place. They need to make a decision. And either way, it's going to cost the taxpayers money.
Right, but rock and a hard place, busing for $67,000, 2 separate series versus busing and what the whole cost is going to be down the line.
But if we did full-day kindergarten, there wouldn't be additional busing costs because it would be wrapped up in our existing busing costs. And because the notes from last month, I started correcting them and then I didn't get a chance. And the additional cost of full-day kindergarten, what was less? It wasn't like...
Because of the size of the second grade class that was last year, they were expecting the same size class coming into kindergarten, and they didn't have as many classrooms. So now that it's that grade... Now the second graders from last year are in 3rd grade, and they're going to be moving out of the building next year. That's going to free up an extra classroom, is what they're telling us. As long as they don't get the same enrollment as the size of the 3rd grade class.
Yeah. So, I mean, they have to come back with their solid numbers, but there wouldn't, so it's like if we don't do full day in kindergarten, then we get the cost of the busing for in midday. If we do full day in kindergarten, then we get the one-time expenses of outfitting the classrooms and all of that. And then we get, I think they said it was like a $27,000 impact going forward. But I could be wrong on that number.
Have they done a head count? Because if all of the kids go to school full day, they're going to have twice as many on the morning buses and twice as many at night. Are they going to fit?
They said that they have enough room because now that 4th and 5th grade this year or last year were moved to the earlier schedule, that there is room on the buses to meet the need of kindergarten.
Yeah.
Who are they planning to put the kindergartners with?
They would put them with the elementary school kids and the high schoolers. I mean,
So
we
you're
put
gonna
first and second.
What bus group is going to get the kindergartners? The high schoolers?
The high school and elementary school, yeah.
The high school and elementary school are on the same bus. It's been that way for a long time.
Yeah.
And now you're going to add kindergartners to that.
Correct.
Okay.
Talk to the state.
Are we planning this year to meet as a whole with the Ware School Board, for example? Like last year, we all met over there at one of their meetings. They presented the budget to this whole committee together.
That workshop, yeah.
Yeah,
We will
would.
definitely do that, and then they will come here and visit us. John Stark, I will be at both meetings, and I will sit down and talk to them and talk to him about coming to visit. The only monkey wrench that may be thrown in this, I need to get a timeline from them, because as Naomi says, we're starting to get down to crunch, and it's always the schools that take the longest. But with Lorraine and
Kathleen.
Thank you. Both retiring in January.
I think Kathleen's on till June.
Okay, but that leaves
Lorraine's leaving in January.
January 1, January 15th, January
I've heard
30th.
a lot of stories, so.
Any one that seems to stick? No?
Like spaghetti?
Okay,
I
okay.
won't say it.
I will also find out about that because if she and Evelyn are both gone at the same time, depending upon when that hits, is gonna have a lot to do with presentations and whether there's, who's coming in, if there is any consistency, if there's a transition right there, or if it's gonna come out later, and how that all shakes out to presentations with us, and will also be a different thing going down the pike. What we do have to do going forward now is we have to start structuring more than one meeting a month. In January, we're going to have more than 2, probably 3 at least, because what's our timeline for when everything has to be in Naomi?
Well, I know collective bargaining has to be agreed upon by the 14th of January, and our public hearing is the 20th of January.
Is that just for collective bargaining or for everything for the
No,
town?
collective bargaining has its own set.
Okay.
That used to be part of a warrant article. But we have to have our public hearing on the budget for the January 20th, which is a Monday night. I think it's Civil Rights Day or something, but we're open, so we're gonna meet.
So we're going to have to do some serious work.
And then you've got the 2 holidays in between, which really mess things up, but.
Yeah, so we've got warrant articles coming up from the town, we've got looking at the budgets, wrestling with that. So we're going to have meetings there. Any guesstimate about when the warrant articles will be ready?
Well, Monday night, we're gonna go the whole budget together.
Okay.
And then I'll do my best to get a rough, but I'm not gonna hand out a rough. Probably the following week, which would be the 16th, because we have some decisions to make on our part too. 16th is a Monday in December.
Okay, so we need to be looking at our calendars here.
Because Christmas and New Year's are on Wednesdays.
I still keep mine on the kitchen counter at home, so I can't.
I've actually.
I mean,
learned
it
how
seems
do
to me
this.
like the week of the 16th is really the only option then, because the
Yes.
following week is Christmas week.
Right.
And then you get into January. We've got 1 week where we can squeeze a meeting in.
And I think we're going to need that meeting in the week of the 16th, in all honesty, because we are going to be having a lot of meetings with the school going into January, unless you want to have 4 meetings, 5 meetings in January. So what does this group want to do? Because we need to get some things done.
What would we have on the 16th?
The 16th is a Monday night in December, and we should be able to look at a rough draft of the warrant articles and the budget. Budget should be done on Monday the 9th.
Okay.
Which means if you've got a rough draft of the warrant articles, we're going to want to talk to people about the warrant articles.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify though that we'll look at them, but at the same time, we have some decisions to make, and hopefully we can make them, you know what I mean, there's some requests. Will they all hit the warrant? I don't know. I can't tell you.
So I guess my question to you is it worth us having a meeting between the 16th and the 20th if you guys have not hardened down as to what you're doing with the warrant articles?
I'm just saying I'll do my best to do a skeleton
Right,
from
but I'm-
night to night. We could try to finalize the 16th. But I think you could at least hear from the warrant article
People.
On the 18th. I mean,
Okay.
it's Wednesday night.
Yes.
Mhm.
So, can this group agree that we will have a meeting on the 18th?
Yes.
I would like to bump that meeting, if possible, to 6:30.
It's fine with me.
And perhaps, Naomi, you could warn the warrant article people that
that's
we
just
would
gonna
be
go around.
loading at 6:30.
You guys a rough skeleton, see how many articles we got anyway?
Yep.
Do we want to go around and make sure that's good for everybody? Because does everybody know their schedules?
Yep.
I'm good
Yeah,
that day.
I'm good.
I'm not available that week at all, unfortunately.
Okay, you're going to go
I'm going
be
to
social
Kansas. No, I'm going
with
to
Dorothy and Toto?
problem solving.
Okay.
I'm reluctantly available.
Well, it's not Christmas week.
It's not Christmas.
Okay,
Well,
so,
my son gets home on the 15th, he comes home one week a year, so
Oh.
I don't like to leave any more than I have to.
So I know this is my first year here, but one of the things I'd like to see is, and, you know, we're all busy because it's right before Christmas, right? Especially people that have kids or kids coming home. I haven't really seen much with agendas with these meetings. Do we give out agendas? Can we set an agenda so that we're super efficient? It's,
the agenda, I could have written one tonight. We would have the 3 department heads come in, and we were going to listen to them, and then we would have reports from the various committees. It's that very simple. It's not like,
we're going to do the same thing next
Yes.
week, on the 18th then?
yes, we're going to listen to the people from the warrant articles
Yeah.
standpoint, and they will talk to us, and as they present their warrant articles, each person that rolls out a warrant article, we will look at that person, and everyone on this committee will have the right to say, why aren't you doing this? I think it would be nice if you did that. I mean, it's going to be one of
So
those things.
it strictly will be a warrant article meeting is what you
Yes.
anticipate?
And then I will-
any warrant article people that want to come?
Yes,
So it could be some, all, or none.
correct.
Fair enough.
But we definitely know that the big 3 will be here. I'm pretty sure Parks and Rec will be here. I don't know who that leaves for warrant articles. I don't know if the library has a warrant article.
So, did I hear correctly that I heard you say you do your best and it would be draft, which is fine, but are you saying that after your Monday meeting, you'd be able to provide those drafts, say on Tuesday?
We're gonna look at the whole package on Monday night as a budget, the whole package.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna do my best to throw out, kind of what we have heard. I mean, when you set Monday night, Benji talked about adding a person. The fire department will have a presentation about 2 more full-timers. Police department, I mean, the only thing he's got is the collective bar, the collecting bar will be there, but he's got
Cruisers.
cruisers. Benji's got the same thing, you guys all saw on the CIP.
Mhm.
You're gonna see the fireworks one, you're gonna see, you know what I mean, there's some traditional ones that hang on there. Is it 2 cruisers or 1? That's a board decision, you know, things like that.
Okay.
So I think the 18th you could accomplish a lot, because we would be done with our budget, I guess,
Yep.
for you guys to look at and to weigh in on as an entire package on the operating part. And then the warrant articles, a lot of Tom said, a truck is a truck. You know what I mean? You aren't gonna see anything from the fire department, because you won't see the boat, you won't see the Tahoe, you won't see, you will see the personnel one, which was the same as last year.
Okay.
You see a 2, something for 2, but you won't see the others. The cruisers, last year was 1, this year's 2, but we haven't had a board discussion on that. Parks and Rec is exactly the same. Fireworks will be the same. Side parade will be the same for cemeteries.
Fireworks.
Fireworks.
No, the other one you said
Side
after.
parade, cemeteries.
Oh,
Cemetery.
okay.
So a lot of them are the same.
Conservation's the
There's really not
same.
any big ups and downs, but, you know, but we have to just put them together.
Right.
But I don't think there's like
So we can-
35 of
we
them, there's
can-
only like 1 for each
We can
department.
hash a lot of stuff out on the 18th and start getting a handle on that, because then when we get done with that, we're going to have a lot of meetings in January. And that's when we do a lot of homework, because we have to eventually start making recommendations. And I will
You
tell,
have to do that, you do your recommendations for your deliberative session.
yes.
Deliberative session is whatever that Saturday is, the 8th or 9th.
And one thing I will tell this committee is we have one of the best people for writing these sitting over there.
I don't write them, I just type them.
Ah, but you have great wording. When we get stuck, you throw in words and make it sound wonderful.
So you could look at the 18th and then everybody bring your calendar, Lord.
Yep.
If you would have your other blanks filled in. from the
So
board.
we're hitting, our regularly scheduled monthly meeting is the 1st of January, that's New Year's Day. So we should automatically
meet on New
go
Year's
with the
Day.
8th, just our first business meeting would, is that correct?
Or-
Save the date?
I would think that the 8th would make sense, because we're not meeting on January 1st. Does anybody have an objection to making the
I
meeting?
will not, I have business that whole week.
Right, but,
New job, so.
so
do
you,
without me.
you may not be here,
I-
right?
I will definitely
Okay.
not be here.
Anybody else have a conflict on the 8th? I-
If the room is available,
The room?
this room is available the week before on a Thursday, or
On the
is that
second,
a planning
please?
board meeting night?
I was just gonna say, if you just do the 18th, I can give you the meeting room schedule, you guys can have your.
Okay, we can figure this out on the 18th, that's
Yeah.
fine.
I'm just thinking, trying to get as much in
Yeah.
as early.
But figure since we're starting at 6:30, if you haven't had time to eat, don't be afraid. You can bring something to nibble on, and certainly feel free to bring something to drink.
Just don't chew in the microphone.
Well, you know, sound effects, you know.
Okay.
White or red?
I'll bring Pringles.
Those are quiet.
Does anybody else have anything they'd wish to discuss? I would
Yes.
like to bring something else up before. We have minutes that we need to approve. So Matt, if,
There was one suggested revision, although I don't entirely understand.
Was it mine that was on your notes? Yeah, I started and then my children.
Okay.
I
Would
had
you
a-
like to pick that up
Insane.
now?
So I think it was.
It was
some-
if the town converts to full day kindergarten, the busing costs will increase by 60K. But you started adding the
No,
busing
because
costs
it's
will
not,
remain
the
the same.
busing, the busing doesn't increase for if we go to full day kindergarten. I think it was 60K if we go to full day kindergarten. So the busing is like, there's a busing increase if we don't go to full day kindergarten. If we go to full day kindergarten, the busing stays the same. There's an increase
Okay.
for full day kindergarten.
Got it.
It's like,
Right. I had another suggested edit. For the police cruisers, it didn't mention the ergonomics that he was,
yeah.
for the reason that they were looking to upgrade to the Tahoes.
Oh, yeah.
When I asked him about the ergonomics, he talked about the vests, not the cars.
He was talking about like standing up and getting down into them.
The seating position in
that-
particular
okay.
was a problem as well.
Right.
Yeah.
We talked about that last time.
So there are two issues with ergonomics.
What are the two issues? The Tahoes have better ergonomics as they are higher off the ground and.
Well, the vest
Then
was
what?
a separate. but
then
it was
just the
still-
cruisers, the little
Right.
cruisers?
Evidently, getting up and down out of those cruisers all day will really take a number on
Well, I
the
think it was
knees.
up and down out of the cruisers as well as the position that they're sitting
And
while
the
riding
equipment
around.
doesn't fit properly within the seat.
The seats are smaller and they're wearing these big bulky vests.
It's actually, the position of seats has something to do with it too, because in an SUV,
Yes.
the position of the seat is upright, whereas in a Charger, it's more back.
Okay.
I think
He
yeah.
didn't say that exactly that way, but that's what he meant.
I think the vest was a separate issue than the cruisers.
Yeah, it makes it worse with the
Like
seats
two-
leaning backwards is I think the point he was making.
Yeah.
The other issue, I don't know if it came up at the last meeting or not, but is the storage issue. When this,
Yeah, that's in
there.
here.
That's there, the cargo capacity.
yeah, that was really phenomenal to look at the difference when we had the CIP group go out and look at what they carried. And I didn't realize I carried so much in the trunk, really.
Okay, so now that we've fixed the minutes, we need a motion to approve.
Move that we approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
Seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? Abstentions? Motion passes. Anybody have any other business they'd like to bring forward?
I do it very brief,
Sure.
I promise.
Can I ask one after he's done?
Sure.
Naomi asked the negotiating teams if I could set in as an observer like Keith did 3 years ago, not bringing anything back to the group until there's a tentative contract, but just to observe the process, and they were okay with that, if it's okay with this committee for me to set in.
But you don't have anything to do with it.
I don't have anything to do with it except observe. Keith was here 3 years ago and just sit and watch. And so after something has been settled, then I can share with you anything.
Once we tentatively come to an agreement, yes.
Yeah, but if you come, once you're tentatively come to an agreement, they can share with us too. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
just
we
an
just following the
insight.
same thing we did before.
Say no if you want, that's okay. I'm just
No, if you
offering
want
to do it.
I don't care, because if they get something settled, I'm going to bring them in anyway, because it's their contract. But-
Actually, this was totally separate from that, but just in conversations with, I don't even remember where it happened, with the officers, they really appreciated that last year, or 3 years ago, being able to
Hope
come
it
in
wasn't
and,
last
no,
year.
3 years ago. Having the opportunity to come in and present themselves. So if nobody has an objection to that, I'll set in. If you do, that's fine. I'm not hung up on.
As long as you're not negotiating anything.
Can't.
Okay. Anybody yays, nays? All in favor?
That's
You
how
have
you
to-
want
you
to
have to
spend
put a
the
motion?
evening.
Do you want an
Need a no
actual
motion.
vote?
In the afternoon, I think. I think in the afternoon.
Can we have a motion?
I'm not sure how to phrase it. Motion to allow Tom to attend the negotiations with what's the-
TD's contracts.
PD's contracts.
As an observer?
As an observer only.
As an observer.
Thank you. That's great.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? You're abstaining?
Well,
That seems sort of odd that you're not
No,
voting.
I think that's
for yourself.
reasonable.
No, yeah.
He should recuse himself because it directly
Smart.
affects
It doesn't,
conflict of interest.
Okay, so you're elected to go listen.
oh, listen.
Don't say anything.
I know you think that'll be difficult for me, but I promise it will be.
I didn't say that. All right, I need another motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry, Naomi.
So I was a little preoccupied this first of the meeting. I guess I'm taken back by what happened at the beginning of the meeting.
Why?
Well, I guess I don't understand how you can be part of a committee and opt not to be part of a night. And Neil can have his preference, and I'm not. It's like one of the selectmen come one night and don't want to be part of it and want to sit in the crowd. I guess I have a hard time with that because it wasn't to sit and observe, if you want to use that word, because I watched Neil chase a couple of them out and ask his own questions that you don't even know what got asked. So you weren't privy to what he was told for information or what was even asked. When I just think that we all try to put so much into trying to work together. I don't know why. I mean, I'm just frustrated, and I apologize, and that's, I wasn't being sarcastic earlier and being funny, but that's my way of being, I just am frustrated.
Because now I'm going to bring the moderator up, please.
Well, I took it as a sign that Neil doesn't want to be a part of this committee.
Can I just make a request? Because people are going to want to hear what you have to say on the TV. I can guarantee it.
Because if you were John Foss, I would be bringing you
Yeah,
up for the
I-
exact same
Thank you.
discussion.
I'm not sure what, I can only assume that something else has gone on here that I'm unaware of. Because this, I've never seen anything like this. So I'm not really sure. I'm looking at it like perhaps this is a statement that Mr. Kirk doesn't want to be part of this committee. I don't know. And I can only go based on what, there was a vote that happened, which is me hearing you say that you all
They
feel
were
that this is
okay
inappropriate.
with it, but they allowed it.
Yep.
That's why I asked, because, and I'm going to put this to a vote again. I would like to know, with this committee, is your job to be here as a committee, or is it your job to opt out when you feel like it?
Well, I'm not sure that that's a fair question. I think the first part is, we agreed to the fact that he wasn't present, so to speak, right? I forget what the actual wording was, right? If you're not participating, you're not present, you don't have the seat at the table, you cannot participate, correct?
However, we all joined this committee to do a job. And if we are going to allow somebody to attend this meeting, not participate up here, but they're still attending and they can go they're operating as the public now doing things. What's to prevent half of you going to do that at the next meeting just because the fit takes you? This is my personal philosophy. When I join something, my job is to do my job to that committee, organization, team, whatever thing I got myself put on. And if I look at that team and I say, today I don't want to play, I'm going to be here, I'm going to go do other things, but I'm still going to be here, and then next week I may show up and participate, I'm not doing my job as a team member. That's just me looking at this. And I have to ask, when do you get to step away from your team for a job that's going on that night, and when do you, and still be part of the team, and when do you get to be part of the audience? Because if Tom Brady doesn't want to play for the Patriots that night and he wants to go sit in the stands, there's a problem. Go ahead.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Just a practical question, and I hope I'm not out of line. Can we ask why? Can't we just ask him what the...
We all voted that he couldn't participate in the meeting.
Right.
So I don't.
Actually
Maybe
asked him
afterwards.
at the beginning of the meeting.
Exactly.
And his statement was, I'm not participating tonight.
Because that's unfortunate, because we actually had specific questions from meetings and things that the input would have been very helpful.
I understand that.
It is.
Here's a question.
It
So,
is. Go ahead.
I do think this raises a lot of questions. Like, it's unclear what the motivation is. Because I remember last year when the schools had their meeting, they presented one thing to us, and then when they came back to us the second time, they told us that they had a private meeting with Neil and changed their plan and then presented something different to us because of their conversation with him. Last year, we heard a lot of, if you're going to have a conversation with somebody on any of the other boards, that you have to be clear about you being, like, it's your personal opinion.
Yes, you cannot represent the
not
committee unless the
representing the
committee
board.
has sent you, correct you.
Are we blurring the lines when we're at the committee meeting and then there's private conversations with all the department heads outside of our purview?
My concern is transparency of process.
Yes, I agree.
Everything else aside, I think that, this is one committee. And this committee has a voice and, as has been pointed out, has influence. I think the reason for having this format, this is an open, transparent process wherein you're asking the questions that are representative looking at specific budgets. And so all of that information needs to be open, it needs to be asked in public, it needs to be heard by our taxpayers. That to me is the most important thing. And so to Naomi's point, I'm witnessing, department heads leaving the room, people walking out after department heads asking for information, asking questions, which as private citizens, we all have the right to go
Correct.
and ask those things. I think not knowing at what point does that information become part of this process? Does that information ever become part of this process? Is that information now not able to be part of this process because the means in which it was obtained? I have questions
Legally,
about it.
I think if you checked with an attorney, you would find that if I got information as me, not the head of the finance committee, I could still bring it to this committee because it would be information they would find interesting. Now, as far as the dynamics and what governs this committee and what the rules are for it, that's where we're a little blurry, fuzzy, because we've been battling for the past... When did we go on camera, Naomi?
A year.
Last year.
I taped you upstairs for a year. So.
Okay, so for the past year or so, we've been battling, some people don't want to be on camera. And again, we're going with our favorite friend, transparency. I do not know where that goes. but I think how this committee acts as far as looking at people not being with them part of the time, what we allow here is setting a standard. It's setting a future for other committees. Technically speaking, the Board of Selectmen, I don't know if you could have one just go sit in the audience or what you would do, quite honestly.
You were elected, the deal is you stepped up to be on that board, volunteered. You were sworn in to sit on this board. You're part of the board. That's like me as a selectman saying, I don't feel like it, and I'll sit in the cheap seats and take pot shots at everybody, and you can't.
Is it different because you're elected and we're appointed? Does that make a difference?
Actually,
And you swore to do the job.
so even though we're appointed by an elected official, even though it's an interim position, technically it's an elected official.
Correct.
So I don't know that it's much different, in my opinion.
And we swore to do the best job.
And we swore, so, right, and so my other question was gonna be, in the oath that we took, which I took recently, I'm sure there were words in regards to the best interest of the committee, et cetera. So, I think that's really the issue here.
Yeah.
So we have got behavior that's not consistent with the best interest of the committee.
But you're not.
Right.
I mean, there's no walking both sides of the fence.
Just going back to what Tammy brought up, I think that it's important, and it really applies to everybody, Neil, not just to Neil, but it did happen last year. The negotiations with the superintendent, knowing, as we all knew, that her priority was to get the contracts passed, which did, but in the process of having a deal that really didn't involve the whole committee, this committee never had a chance to vote on the school budget as a whole. We could only vote on it when all of the technology equipment had been removed from it, because the deal had already been struck that they lowered their budget in order to assure that the committee would support the contracts, which we did, but we didn't have a chance to look at the whole picture because as Tammy said, when it came back to us, the changes in the budget had already been made. It's kind of
That's-
difficult as a finance committee to say, no, we want you to put that back in.
I will make a correction to this. I found out within 24 hours that there had been a discussion.
Here, at this committee?
I found out from the SAU side. And I explicitly told the SAU that nobody on this committee, including me, can at any time tell anybody on the school board, the SAU, what can be done. We cannot bargain. We cannot say, if Lori likes this, the whole committee will go with it. And I made that very clear, and Lorraine said, but, and I said, no. So I said, you better restructure and think about it, because I said, I will tell the committee, which I did come in and tell you what had gone down. That's when we addressed it. And at the beginning of this year, I made it very clear, none of us have the ability to make these. We're not used car salesmen. We can't make these kinds of decisions. We
But it
just
also
don't have that.
it wasn't clear what the discussion was or how it was laid out. It's still not clear how the department heads are receiving the information that's being discussed. I mean,
Which department heads?
everybody that left tonight when they were having
Oh,
private discussions,
okay.
even last year with the superintendent, like you said, like she called you and explained it to you. We still don't know what was said or how, if she took what you said or what Neil said and like what she did with that. It would be, I think,
'Cause we weren't part of
beneficial
the
for everybody
conversations,
to
so we
have the
couldn't know.
open conversations so that it's like, it's transparent. That's our job, isn't it? To try to get all of the information out into the public so that they can make an informed decision. But if we don't even have all the information as committee members, then I think we're.
Chris.
As a brand-new member last year, I attended the meeting when John Foss gave us a very strict lecture about unity and working as a team, and no kind of side conversations type thing, bring it to the group. I also belong to something that has as one of its operating principles, participation is the key to harmony. And last year, we had people with very differing opinions, but we worked as a group, and we worked well. I was very satisfied at the end of the experience that we did the best we could, and we gave the townspeople the best recommendations possible through differing opinions. I want the opportunity to share differing opinions at the table.
I will tell you that we saw John Foss a lot last year, and we saw him a lot at the beginning of this year. The reason we saw John Foss so often is I had a lot of phone calls with John Foss. That's my job as chair. When I have a question, I call, now you, and if I say, I'm concerned about this, or talk to Naomi, do we need to check with an attorney? We need to look at this. John and I had a lot of conversations. Naomi was aware of them. We checked with the attorney on several situations because we wanted to make sure we don't ever bring anything forward that can hurt anybody's public reputation. You know, there's the whole slander, defamation of character, yada, yada, yada. So when we brought things forward, it was all very carefully handled because we had to be very careful how we do that. But make no mistake, it was always checked, just as tonight we are now rechecking this. And I put it to you earlier, I'm now looking at my committee and I'm saying to you people, you have to start making a decision what it is you want out of the people on this committee. I have to know if we say what it is and we vote on what we think it is, then I have to know from my town moderator and possibly the attorney, is this right or is this wrong? Because this is a whole new different set of waters. We've never run into this before.
Because my question is, like, now that he's gotten all this, like, we can go out and I can ask whatever questions I want to out of.
Yes,
but
which you always
he
could.
just asked these questions. So then when we go to deliberate, is he going to bring this information and like, basically stir the waters because it's new information that we've never heard before? And is he going to do this every single time? So on the 18th, is he going to do this again? Like, that's my concern, is that it's just going to keep stirring waters and our decisions are not going to be as unified and they're going to be more muddled.
Understood?
To be
Andy?
fair, we also don't know what the motivation is, like what they were discussing. We don't know, so I think that we should give him a chance to explain at the next meeting what the motivation is, like what the conversations were.
I want to say something. We've agreed that he's not here, so he shouldn't participate. However, I think we have to handle some of this tonight. I don't think you can sit and drag this out for a month.
I'd like Eileen's opinion on that.
I'd like the opportunity to speak to Mr. Kirk one-on-one.
You personally?
Yeah, and
I'm good with, does the committee have any objection to this?
It's not up
Because-
to us, it's up to her.
No, but we do have a right to let her know how we
Yeah,
feel
but-
because she
and-
has to deal with us and we are the ones that are going to be handling all this.
Great idea then.
Yeah, I don't
that's what
think
I'd
we
like to
can
do.
make a unilateral decision tonight.
Without information.
Okay, so we're all comfortable with you having a conversation. I would hope that you would call me and then at the next meeting, we will have you presenting what the outcome was.
I
I don't know.
I'm
Again, it's that
the
transparency
way
problem.
that I plan to roll with this is I'd like to have a conversation alone with Mr. Kirk to discuss what's going on, and then I'll come back and address the group because
That's fine.
I think that that's my preference, and so I want to thank you for tonight. And I know that this is difficult, and I know that this is different, but we live in Ware, and I've come to expect that. So.
It's everywhere.
But, just from my perspective, I think the reason that I accepted this position is because it's important to me that we provide the citizens of this town with the most transparent, well-thought-out, hard-working experience that we can all possibly provide them. And so I think, I don't want 13 people who think same. I want 13 divergent opinions. I want a rich discussion in the room. I want rich questions asked of all the department heads. I want it to be thorough. I want it to be well thought out so that when I'm listening to it at the deliberative session, I know that this was well vetted. That's what I'm looking for. I don't expect you all agree, but I do expect everyone to come in and participate, be ethical, be transparent, and to work together. That's what I'm looking for. So thank you.
Well, then going forward, after opening the meeting on the 18th, is it the 8th or the 18th?
18th.
You're going to be first on the docket.
I plan to
Because
be.
that has, we got to clean up things before we go forward. So we're on the same page and everybody is aware. So our agenda is this, then the warrant
I'm clear on
articles.
yes.
You got this?
I got the agenda.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we have to-
Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second? All in favor, say aye.
I actually need to do that, by the way. It's your prerogative to
Right.
adjourn whenever.
Out of